Welcome to Reaper's Creepers. Step into the shadows, where tales of the unknown unfold. Relax, listen, and drift into the dark. I'm Riley, and if you've spent as many years as I have elbow deep in motorcycle guts, you'd know they've got souls of their own. Not just quirks, real personalities. Stories only those truly attuned can hear, those who know how to listen to what the machine is telling you. Step out to the back of my shop, and you'll see what I mean. A graveyard of wrecked bikes, their frames twisted, their souls caged. Some of them are tragedies. A chopped Harley that carried a kid to his last ride. A Yamaha that broke a drifter's heart. Others are pure evil. Those are the ones that need to be restored, to keep them quiet. In their beat-up state, they call out, begging to be fixed, luring victims in with promises of the open road. The few I've restored so far, sorry, I meant the ones we have restored so far. I don't do this alone. They gleam on display in my shop, preserved, not for sale or riding. That's what keeps them dormant, their souls quiet, until some fool throws a leg over to ride them. How'd I end up running this haunted chop shop? Well, that's a long damn story. It all started with a Norton Commando and a beautiful woman in a red dress. Back when I was a different man. A jaded punk who thought a fast bike could outrun anything, especially his own mistakes. Back then, I was who I was. A guy in my early 30s, holed up in my shop off Route 66, where the air was thick with grease and regret. Too many movie binges had me tossing one-liners like wrenches. Cynical from fixing Harleys for posers who thought a leather jacket or a cut is what made a man tough. Motorcycles were my life, each with its own attitude, like my old Triumph that wouldn't start unless you talked dirty to her. A stubborn bitch I couldn't help but respect. Out back, the lot held a mess of wrecked and broken down bikes, scrap and parts, nothing special. At least that's how I viewed it back then. Most of it was there when I bought the place. There wasn't much that came into the shop that I couldn't salvage or repair. I'd scavenged the lot frequently for spares, and often thought about restoring some of those bikes one day, when I had the cash or more patience. Never got around to that until later, but I'd eye them sometimes, wondering what stories they'd tell if I brought them back to life. Beautiful women, though, they were my kryptonite. Their smiles hitting me harder than pinning your hand to a frame with an air wrench, and I never saw them coming. It was a slow Tuesday, the shop quiet, except for the buzz of the neon open sign that flickered like it was on its last legs. A guy rolled in with a late 1960s Norton Commando, cherry red, but showing its age, faded paint, scuffed chrome, a bike that had seen better days. He was middle-aged, flannel shirt, and reeking of hipster. I did my best to not hold it against him. His hands were calloused, like he'd been wrenching for a while. He wasn't just wearing that non-conformity like a uniform sipping on microbrews. I can't get it to run, he said, frustration clipping his words. Been restoring it for months, checked everything, fuel, battery, wiring, nothing's wrong. But it won't go. Fix it or I'm scrapping it for parts and moving on to another project. He paid up front, no haggling, and pushed the Norton into my bay, its headlights staring, like it was sizing me up. I nodded, thinking, another day, another puzzle. Truth is, I love this part of the job, diagnosing a bike's secrets, taking it for a spin to feel its heart. Keeps me sane, keeps me wrenching on them. I decided to do a quick assessment of the Norton after closing the shop, even though it was dark, having only a single bulb swinging overhead, casting long shadows that were dancing across it. The spectacle kind of put me into a trance. I'm not sure how long I stared, fixated on it. It wasn't planned, but I had a little time to kill before heading out to find some entertainment for the evening, and her name was Lila. I checked the basics. Tank full, battery charged, spark plugs were fresh. The Amal carb was getting fuel, and the jets were clean. I kicked the engine over. It was smooth, no hiccups, and fired right up purring like a cat that'd been faking sick. "What's your deal?" I muttered, half expecting an answer. The bike ran fine, better than it should for its age, with none of the issues the guy complained about. Maybe he'd missed something intermittent, a glitch that only showed up under load? Only one way to find out. I grinned as I grabbed my helmet. Test rides are the best part of this gig. Feeling a new bike's soul, the road under you, the wind cutting through the bullshit. I'd planned to hit Rusty's Tavern after, catch up with Lila, the chick I'd met there 2 nights ago. Red dress, glowing porcelain skin that I desperately wanted to touch and feel, and stunning gray eyes that hooked me in like a fish. The kind of trouble I was too dumb to avoid. But first, the Norton needed a shakedown. It was past midnight when I rolled the Norton out, the shop's radio spitting static as I locked the door. I glanced at the rear lot. Wrecked bikes sat quiet, their frames glinting faintly under a half moon. Just scrap, waiting for a purpose, I thought. I kicked the Norton back to life, its engine humming steady. No protest. The road outside was empty, the kind of empty that makes you feel like the last guy on earth. I eased onto Route 66, letting the bike stretch its legs. The throttle responsive, the ride smooth as whiskey. No stutters, no misfires. Whatever the owner's problem was, it wasn't here. I pushed harder, the speedometer climbing, the wind sharp against my face. It wasn't long before I forgot about Lila, forgot the shop. It was just me and the Norton, its soul alive under me, its heartbeat strong. Then it got weird. I'd meant to head toward Rusty's, a straight shot through town, but the Norton felt insistent, like it was nudging me left, toward the desert outskirts. I'm not one for hunches, but my gut said go with it, like the bike was begging me to explore. I turned. The road narrowed, asphalt giving way to gravel, then dirt and sagebrush scratching at the tires. The headlight cutting into the dark, unknown. At some point, my sense of time slipped. Had I been riding 10 minutes or an hour? The stars looked wrong, too bright, and the air smelled of dust and something sweeter, like perfume gone stale. I shook my head, muttering, "Get it together, Riley. You're not hallucinating." But my grip on the bars felt distant, like I was passively watching myself ride. The Norton eventually slowed on its own, forcing me to a stop at a clearing I didn't recognize. It was a patch of nowhere, surrounded by twisted trees that hadn't been there a second ago. Or were they? My heart kicked up a bit, and I blinked hard, half convinced I was seeing things. There was a small, decaying barn off to my side about 30 yards away, its wood warped, windows black as oil. The Norton's engine idled, a low purr, like it was waiting. "What the hell is this?" I said aloud, my voice swallowed by the quiet. I dismounted, boots crunching onto the desert ground, and approached the barn. The perfume smell stronger now, making my head swim. Inside, a single table held an old printed map of my town, dated but somewhat currently accurate. Older roads showed their loops and dead ends that didn't exist anymore, and new streets I drove daily were missing. What really got my attention was the red X. It marked an old graveyard, one I'd passed 1,000 times but never stopped at. I stared at the map, my hands shaking, not sure how long I'd been standing there. Minutes? Hours? Outside, the Norton's headlight began to flicker like an old film projector, and for a second, I swore I saw a familiar-looking woman's silhouette in the beam. Red dress, dark hair. Then she was gone, when I blinked. "I'm losing it," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. But the map felt real, with that X continuing to burn into my brain. My phone blared from inside my pocket as I jolted awake, except I wasn't in the barn anymore. I was laying down on my old leather couch back at the shop, alarm blaring, and sunlight slicing through the windows. It was painful and blinding. Sweet baby Jesus, what did I drink last night? I angrily mumbled to myself, still in a state of shock. All my clothes were still on, including my riding jacket. All were caked in red dust from a road I didn't remember riding on. Sure, the dirt road last night was dusty, but it wasn't red. Was it? Is that where that perfume smell is coming from? I slowly grabbed the phone from out of my pocket to shut off the alarm and saw an unread text from Lila that glowed on my screen.
Missed you last night, Riley. Come back to the bar soon.
I quickly sat up, my heart pounding. The map's X brightly flashed in my vision for a second, remaining vivid in my eyes like a camera flash spot. Was last night a dream? Couldn't be. The dust on my clothes said otherwise. Weird didn't begin to cover it. What the hell, man? Was all I could mutter, wide awake now. That damn map's red X was lodged in my head all morning. And Lila's text, "Missed you last night, Riley. Come back to the bar soon," had me rattled, like I'd kicked over a hornet's nest. Why am I seeing this chick everywhere? I only talked to her for a little bit at Rusty's. Thinking about our encounter sucked me back in, that red dress, those gray eyes, her soft glowing skin. I shook my head, attempting to refocus on the task at hand, and that was figuring out what the hell was going on. I know I've got a one-track mind, but damn, this is nuts. I knew sure as hell I didn't give her my number. As I continued thinking out loud, my eyes drifted to the jacket on the couch, still caked in that red dust. Definitely the source of that stale perfume, I thought. Even after my shower, the smell was crazy strong. It had to be. What the hell? That ain't dust from any dirt road around here. I closed my eyes, frustration clawing at me, and saw the Norton in my head, its headlight flickering like it was taunting me. Or, hell, maybe trying to spark a seizure. It was barely noon, the shop dead quiet, as I wandered to the back window, staring at the wrecked and scrapped bikes. Something in me itched to dive into a project like always. Maybe when I wasn't scraping by, I could restore that Yamaha with the decent tank, I thought. "This is stupid, Riley," I muttered, snatching my old Ford Ranger keys from their hook. As I did, the shop's radio began spitting static like it was laughing at me. I didn't know what its deal was. It was humming fine 3 days ago. Gotta shut that damn thing off before it completely craps the bed. Looking down at the keys in my hand, I decided to do it when I got back. The graveyard was a short haul, 10 minutes past town. I needed answers, not another distraction. The drive felt wrong. Route 66 too quiet, the air thick with wet dirt and that stale perfume. I took the Ranger. No way I was messing with the Norton, not after that head trip last night. Once I got to the graveyard, I was met with an ancient-looking iron gate that looked like it hadn't seen paint or lube since the damn Stone Age. It was so corroded that I thought it would fall apart if opened. I couldn't remember the last time I had a tetanus shot. Oh well. It did open without too much protest, letting out loud shrieks and groans as I swung it, like it was pissed I disturbed it. Headstones jutted out like broken teeth, some crumbling, some fresh. Many names were faded under lichen. I didn't need the map. I found the grave fast. That X was seared into my brain. 1968. No name. Just a chipped stone with a motorcycle carved deep like someone meant it. Kind of looked like a Norton. My breath hitched as I crouched, brushing dirt off the stone, my fingers tingling like I'd grabbed a live spark plug. Then the wind kicked up, sharp and cold, carrying her voice.
Riley, you're so close.
I spun, heart slamming. "Lila?" I called. But the graveyard was empty, just me and the dead, all confused and pissed. As I closed my eyes, the Norton's headlight flared in my mind again, and when I opened them, I swore I saw her. Red dress, dark hair, with her gray eyes glowing in the distance. Then she was gone when I blinked. "I'm hallucinating or fucking losing it," I growled, rubbing my face. That perfume was choking me now, and my watch read 4 o'clock p.m. 3 hours gone. Like I'd been stuck in a damn trance. Next thing I knew, I was in the Ranger, engine off, parked on a random back road miles from the graveyard with no memory of driving. The gravestone still burned in my mind, her voice echoing. "What the hell's happening to me?" I muttered, cranking the ignition. I needed answers and needed them now. I decided to stop by Rusty's on my way back to the shop. As I walked in, the bartender Adam spotted me, his face twisting into a mirror of the mess I probably looked like.
"Bro, you good, man?"
he asked, leaning over the bar. "Great," I shot back, voice flat.
"Well, you don't look it.
He said, wiping a glass.
Didn't look that great 3 days ago either."
I frowned, leaning in. "Why you say that? I had a blast here the other night. Met a real good-looking chick. She was cool. She knew motorcycles." My voice trailed off, stopped by the confusion and disbelief on his face, like I'd just claimed I rebuilt a Harley with a paperclip.
"What are you talking about?"
Adam said, setting the glass down hard.
"You sat at the bar alone, refusing to talk to anyone. Barely said shit to me, just kept muttering another 2 shots of whiskey with this creepy-ass smile. Freaked out a lot of folks."
I stood there, gut punched, my mind spinning. I remembered being here, chatting up Lila all night, her red dress and gray eyes pulling me into her again. "Focus, Riley." Yeah, I was a bit antisocial, trying to score, so I didn't chat with the regulars. Figured they knew the deal. But Adam was saying there was no Lila, like I'd imagined the whole damn thing. "What the hell?" I said out loud, louder than I meant, making Adam tense up, his hand hovering near the Mossberg he always kept propped up under the bar. "No bullshit?" I asked, softer, cutting the tension.
"No bullshit,"
he replied, dead serious, his eyes locked on mine.
"To be honest, I was worried about you, man. Never seen you like that. You'd get stuck in your head sometimes, but not like that."
"Thanks, bro," was all I could mutter, my brain grappling with the idea that the night was either a hallucination or worse, real, in a way I couldn't grasp. "Did I go out to the parking lot that night?" I asked, grasping at straws. Adam's brow furrowed, confused again.
"Yeah, you just stood by your Ducati, staring off into space for like an hour. I was about to check on you when I saw you gear up, smiling like a damn loon, then ride off."
We stared at each other, the silence heavy as a dropped wrench, until he forced a grin.
"Bro, you didn't just check out on me again, did you?"
I laughed, a real laugh, because this was so absurd it was all I could do. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Just been real distracted the last few days is all." Total lie, and Adam knew it. His eyebrows raised, nodding like he was sure I was one bad day from a psych ward, which, to be fair, wasn't far off. "I gotta get back to the shop," I said, turning for the door. "See you later." He nodded, that knowing look saying he wasn't buying my shit, but he let me go. Back at the shop, the scrapped bikes glinted under a blood-red sunset, like they were staring me down, or maybe I was staring them down, looking for something solid to ground me. I needed a distraction, anything to pull me out of this head-spinning madness, but I ended up crashing on my leather couch instead. Mentally and physically, drained like I hadn't slept for days. As I closed my eyes, the radio began to hiss Lila's name in the static. Or was I just hearing things? Of course I forgot to shut the damn thing off. It'll probably fry itself by morning, I thought, trying to tune it out. Just as I started to sleep, my phone buzzed. Another text from Lila.
"You're late. I'm at Rusty's."
I cursed, my head pounding. Was I blacking out like a drunk, losing my grip and memories? I looked over at the Norton still sitting in the bay, its chrome gleaming under the shop's flickering bulb, like it was begging me to fire it up and rip the throttle wide. I ain't no detective, but Lila, whoever or whatever she was my only shot at figuring this out, and I wasn't waiting for another Norton mind trip ride to track her down. I needed to get back to Rusty's. Before leaving for Rusty's, I called the owner of the Norton and told him his bike was done. He sounded stoked over the phone, then dropped a bomb. "A woman in a red dress referred me to you 2 days ago. Said you're the best mechanic around. If you couldn't fix it, nobody could." I damn near dropped the phone. That was 1 day after I met Lila. Brunette, glowing porcelain skin, piercing gray eyes. I asked, my throat tight. Yeah, you know her? He asked enthusiastically. She spoke very highly of you and your reputation for working on trouble bikes. No, I said, honest as hell. I don't know her at all, but I've seen her around. She's hard to miss, he laughed. Sure is, I muttered, pain twisting my gut. Sexy as hell, knew a ton about older bikes, loved my Norton, said she had a special place in her heart for them. He continued to ramble on, so I cut him off. Anyways, it's ready to go. Awesome. I'll be there first thing in the morning to pick it up, he said. Great, I'll see you then, I replied, slamming the phone into its base. That poor fool, he has no idea how troubled that bike is, I muttered, grabbing the Ranger keys on my way out the door. I arrived at Rusty's Tavern for the second time that day, my favorite old neon-lit shithole, the kind of joint where the beer's warm and the regrets are free. I parked the Ranger, leaving the Norton behind. Screw that bike and its mind games. It'll be gone in the morning, hopefully taking Lila with it. I know it's tied to her somehow. No idea how, but I feel it in my bones. Inside, the jukebox whined what sounded like a Johnny Cash cover. Probably that new band Volbeat I'd heard on the radio. Lila was at the bar, red dress clinging to her like it was painted on, porcelain skin glowing under the flickery lights, gray eyes pinning me like a bug. She was even more alluring than the other night. I hadn't noticed then, but now I saw it. Her style was pure vintage, like she stepped out of a 60s flick. Her hair was permed long, not that god-awful 80s poof from my childhood, and her dress screamed late 60s, not some thrift store knockoff. She looked like a damn Bond girl, but I knew better. This chick was a femme fatale, through and through.
You ghosted me, Riley,
she said, voice low, a smirk that said she knew I was spooked. I slid onto a stool, hands unsteady. I've had a weird night, Red, not in the mood. She leaned in. Close enough I caught that perfume less stale now, her breath cool. I ignored her while glancing at Adam behind the bar, his face all concern as he held a whiskey bottle. I nodded, and he grabbed a glass, pouring me a shot and setting it down.
We good tonight?
He asked, worry creasing his brow. Yeah, I replied, flashing a smile and a wink. Sunshine and rainbows, bro. He left the bottle and glass, then turned away to other patrons.
Very cute, you liar.
My gaze shifted back to Lila as I poured myself another round. With an accusing glare, she said,
You ditched Jess, didn't you? She wanted a future, scared you shitless, so you bailed.
My whiskey glass hit the bar hard, splashing. Adam spun around, concern now edging into anger. I opened and closed my right hand fast, gripping my forearm with my left, playing up an old bike accident's nerve damage as an excuse. He stared, suspicious, but I grinned wide, all innocent-like. He wasn't buying it, but went back to work.
You're not very sexy when you're nervous,
she mocked, almost pouting. Jess was my ex, a wound buried under years of grease and denial. Nobody in this town knew that, not even Adam. Who the hell are you? I demanded, voice rough. Her eyes glinted like the Norton's headlight.
I see what you run from, Riley, and she is the reason you are here in this town. I saw it when you rode her. My Norton.
I stood, knocking the stool back, and she laughed.
You're so cute when you're scared, Riley.
It cut through me like a sheared gear. Adam glanced over, his look saying that I'd worn out my welcome. I dropped some cash on the bar and faced Lila. You're crazy, lady, I said, storming out with as much dignity as I could muster.
Don't ride it again, Riley,
she pleaded. Whatever, was all I managed to come back with, drawing stares from several nervous people. Outside, the Norton sat in the lot. Fucking impossible. I'd left it at the shop. Its paint was glossy, not faded, the chrome polished. Its headlight flickering like a bad movie projector, and saw her face in the beam. Lila, smiling, her red dress bleeding into the dirt. I'm done with this shit, I growled, jumping in the Ranger, throwing gravel as I peeled out of the parking lot. The shop. I needed the shop. That wasn't the same Norton I'd been working on. Or was it? When I got back, the Norton was there right where I left it, faded paint and all. What the hell? The damn radio went nuts, static blaring, playing even after I yanked the plug. I smashed it into the floor over and over until it shut up. The Norton just sat there, silently mocking me. I knew what I had to do. The puzzle was almost complete, just a few pieces left. I grabbed my helmet and jacket, opened the bay door, and kicked the Norton to life. I rolled out hard onto Route 66. The bike was rough, like wrestling a pissed-off beast. She didn't respond like last time. Like two separate wills were fighting for control, each with its own agenda. Out of nowhere, the Norton nudged me left, onto a back road that wasn't on any map. The asphalt was too clean, air thick with fog and Lila's perfume. Then time blurred. Minutes? Hours? The headlight reflecting off the fog showed Lila in 68, riding the Norton, her hair whipping in a storm, pushing it too hard. Some guy's laughing face appeared. He looked like the typical douchebag poser I hated. Then he was gone. I saw Lila again, her eyes wet with tears and rage as she crashed. She laid limp on the ground, lifeless, the rain diluting her blood, the wet dirt slowly consuming it. I gasped as I hit the clutch and brakes, desperately wanting this ride to end. The road snapped back to reality, the Norton's engine at idle as we coasted along the road, slowly rolling to a stop. It knew it had spilled its secret. Lila's voice hummed in my head, not the wind.
You can feel it, Riley. The Norton has us both now.
The bike stopped, my boots crunching gravel, heart pounding like it was bouncing off a rev limiter. My phone said 3 a.m. Hours vanished again. I got a fresh text from Lila.
Please come back.
I took a deep breath and sighed, dropped the Norton into gear, and turned back toward the shop. When I got there, I parked it, its chrome smugly glinting in the moonlight. The hot engine and exhaust pinging, breaking the silence of the night. I listened for a while, fixated on the Norton. More clarity now. I was in deep. Lila wasn't just some bar chick. She was tied to this Norton, to that grave, to the spot in the desert. I rolled the Norton into the shop and grabbed a large hammer, its weight grounding and calming me. I knew what I had to do. Unfortunately, destroying the Norton wasn't it. I was ready for the final piece of this puzzle. I needed to clarify my suspicions with Lila first. Before I could proceed, I needed to clear my head, wipe the slate clean and let the pieces fall into place, a process I knew all too well from long before this nightmare began. I turned, my gaze locking onto my Ducati, a 2008 Sport Classic 1000S, tuned with a full Termignoni exhaust, a masterpiece I'd snagged years before Tron Legacy cemented its fame. I grabbed my 6th gen iPod Nano, headphones in hand, the glitch mob already queued. I had neglected her the past few days, despite our rides being the only time I felt truly alive and at peace. Fear had crept in. Fear that this madness might taint her, severing our bond forever. Yet the notion of her as my guardian, which had flickered in my mind before, now hit with full force as she roared to life. Guilt stabbed at me for ignoring her, but it faded fast. Clarity washed over me with the first rev, goosebumps prickling my spine. Outside, I hit play on the Nano. Animus Vox kicked in, a fitting anthem, I thought. I cranked the volume up, drew a deep breath, dropped the Ducati into gear, and cracked the throttle. Lila was waiting, and she needed me. Rusty's was a ghost town when I rolled into its gravel lot on the Ducati, the inn long closed. I killed the engine, coasted to a spot out front, and dismounted, hanging my helmet on the grip. Adjusting my jacket, I pulled off my headphones and caught Lila in the corner of my eye, leaning against the inn, where she hadn't been a second ago. The night was dead quiet, save for a neon sign buzzing like a dying wasp, and the faint pings of the Ducati cooling in the chilly air. Lila stood still, her red dress faded, gray eyes raw, like she'd been battling demons all night.
I love the sound of that bike.
She said, gazing at the Ducati, her voice a whisper, eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know you do, Red, I replied softly, and I know why now. Her gaze lifted to mine, fighting tears, her form flickering in and out. I stepped closer, face to face, the weight of her stare heavy. That spot in the desert. You died there, I said.
Yes.
She admitted. The grave, it's yours? I stated, already knowing.
Yes.
She confirmed. Tonight, the Norton... She cut me off, voice sharp.
It's evil, Riley. Stay away from it.
I nodded. I know. But how are you two connected? What's your story, Red? Why are you and that Norton after me like a bad debt? She crossed her arms, jaw tight, but her eyes betrayed her. Pain, like I'd pried open a rusted lock.
You really want to know, Riley?
Her voice was low, cutting.
We're not after you. We're fighting over you. The Norton wants you. I don't.
I raised an eyebrow, smirking. You don't want me, Red? Doubt that. Her expression hardened.
No, I don't. I'd rather you stay free, not trapped in the Norton alone.
I nodded, piecing it together. The radio at my shop, the map, the grave, warnings from you? I asked.
Yes.
She said. Why didn't you just tell me at the bar? I snapped, frustration slipping through.
Would you have believed me?
She fired back fierce. I sighed. No, probably not. You're right. So let's cut the bullshit, Red. You know my dirt. Why'd the Norton choose you? Who was that clown I saw in the fog?
That was Calvin, my beau, my everything back in '68. Loved me like fire, then ditched me for some safe little nobody who didn't burn like I did. Broke me in half. After him I was poison. Mark, Eli, a few other riders. I was permanently on the make. Used 'em, ghosted 'em, 'cause they could never fill his shadow. I bought the Norton at this dive bar in this very lot, red as my rage, running too smooth like it knew my pain. I rode it to escape him, but the Norton fed on it, lured me into pushing too hard in a storm, crashed. It wouldn't let me go, bound me to its soul, to this dive where our connection was made. Since then, the Nortons passed from rider to rider, all lured to fix my reckless damage. Took decades to rebuild. It's only been a few weeks since it was mostly restored, letting me walk Rusty's again, watching people, seeing what I've missed. Then I saw you, Riley. You've got fight, that fire, that defiance. You run, but you don't break. You're not broken like I was, and you're not a coward like he was. I'm not chasing Calvin's ghost. More importantly, I'm here for you. Nobody knew my name after I died. That's why my grave's got no name. I knew nobody here. You saw me, truly saw me, even as I am now. That's incredible. I couldn't let the Norton take you from me. I've got no one, Riley.
Her voice cracked, eyes wet, and I felt it. A pull, maybe love, but mostly two broken souls still sparking. Two lost souls, swimming in a fishbowl. Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here started playing in my head, but I pushed it aside. I had to focus. I like women, but I don't commit, I admitted. Jess wanted a ring. I wasn't ready, knew it'd crash and burn, so I bolted. She got married right after, then a few more times. Good for her, she seems happy now. Before her, Sarah played me, ghosted after I rebuilt her junk Yamaha for free. Tara, after Jess, stole my tools and what was left of my trust. I accidentally called her Sarah one night. That's all it took. Not my fault they're so similar. Lila half smiled.
I know about Isla.
She teased. I'm sure you do, Red. Why you think I call you that? I smirked. Her smile widened, genuine, flattered by the nickname. I haven't found one worth sticking for. That's why I run, I continued.
Why you think I couldn't let the Norton take you tonight? I was teasing earlier. I needed to be sure.
I leaned in, my left hand against the wall above her shoulder. her words hitting like a seized engine. That's a hell of a story, Lila. But you don't get to mess with my head just because I'm some echo of your ex. Just because you got alpha widowed doesn't mean I have to pay for it. I'm not Calvin, and I'm not Jess's mistake. I've been running from my own shit. No one's trapping me. Not you, not that Norton. I leaned closer, our breaths mixing, the air thick with that damn perfume. Raw, intoxicating, and for the first time it smelled good. You want me? We do this straight. We fix the Norton, restore it fully, like it's new, and keep it off the road. We face our messes, my running, your ghosting. No more games. Her gaze held mine, fierce but worn, like a bike with too many miles. Deal, Red? I asked, voice steady. She looked down at her hand, then brushed it along my right hand, the one I damaged in a crash years ago. Her touch was soft, real, electric. Every bit as wild as I'd imagined when I first saw her. She looked up, matching my gaze, and whispered,
How? I'm still bound to the Norton.
I pulled back slowly, turning toward the Ducati. That's how, I said. Still got that same anger and rage from when you got the Norton? I asked. She frowned, defensive.
No, not at all. I've wanted to be free of it for years.
I nodded. That's why it wanted me. A fresh soul to feed on. It was done with you. I saw it tonight. Lucky for me, I battle happiness like most people battle depression or anger, I said, half joking.
That makes no sense.
She replied. Sure it does. I fight against being happy. It makes me soft. When the Norton tried to manipulate me, it had no leverage. I played it, made myself angry, sad, on purpose. Once it saw through the act, it let me go mostly. It doesn't want either of us anymore. Lila stared, still puzzled. It's simple, I explained. The energy we put into it gets amplified, reflected back at us. A feedback loop. Think of a coil pack with no discharge. The windings build energy until it explodes. We crash. I paused. I figured it out when I saw its projections and your eyes. They looked like an old 60s film, matching your frame of reference when you bonded with the Norton. I glanced at her. When you saw my past, what did it look like? She hesitated, catching on.
Tiny squares, flat, mostly in the shape of a rectangle.
We both glanced through the window at the plasma screen in the bar.
That's far out,
she said, awestruck. Right? I grinned, enthusiastic. Shit's crazy, I added, tone dropping. But before we go further, Red, I need to know. Why'd you recommend me? I asked, dead serious, shifting the mood.
I watched you,
she said bluntly, a hint of remorse in her voice.
I heard people talk about your problem-solving skills. I had a problem and I thought you were a Lothario.
I blinked. A what?
A Lothario, someone who uses women like Calvin did,
she said, ashamed. Fair enough, I replied.
I'm sorry,
she whispered, her hand caressing my face toward hers.
I was so wrong. You're amazing.
Tears of regret slid down her cheek. I leaned in, whispering in her ear. It settled then. We worked together from now on. I turned to the Ducati. Time to get you home, Red. I grabbed her hand, leading her to the bike.
How's this gonna work?
She asked, scared. I'm not sure, but I've got a feeling it will, I said. Trust me. Trust the Ducati. Abandon the Norton for good. Hope, purpose, protection, freedom. That's what the Ducati feeds on, Red. That's her secret. I tried to hand her my helmet, then froze. After a beat of awkward silence, we both burst into laughter at the absurdity. Right, I said, playing it off.
You're cute when you embarrass yourself.
She teased with a smirk. The Ducati fired up with a roar. I threw my leg over and mounted her, Lila sliding on behind me.
You're the first man I've ever been a back warmer for,
she said. I glanced back.
I always rode my own, but I can get used to this.
Her arms wrapped tight around me, her warm smile lighting up her face. I blew her a teasing kiss, then cracked the throttle and dumped the clutch, tearing out of Rusty's lock. The Ducati roared into the silent night as we rode together for the first time. She wasn't kidding. Her arms felt warm, comforting. I could get used to that, too. At the shop, she hopped off, buzzing.
That ride was groovy.
She shouted, childlike excitement in her voice. I couldn't help but hear the opening verse of Sublime's 40 ounces to freedom in my head. Geez, Red, you really are a blast from the past, I said.
What's an alpha widow?
She asked, still laughing. You've got a lot of catching up to do, Red, I said with a chuckle, her face beaming with excitement. I couldn't help but notice the first light of dawn piercing the fading darkness, its gentle rays casting a faint shimmer across her figure, as if the morning light were slowly unraveling the edges of her presence. I tuned it out of my thoughts, chuckling over her manic laughter as I pulled open the bay door. Then, silence. I turned back. She was gone, like she'd never been there. I stared at the Ducati's headlight. Nothing. My shoulders slumped, demoralized, helmet slipping from my hand to the ground. I turned to walk into the bay, but as I stepped into the dark, a flash from the Ducati's turn signals lit up the space. I spun around. They were off. You fucking tease, I muttered, a twisted smirk tugging at my lips.
You're not very sexy acting like a lost puppy, Riley.
I knew it. That song is gonna haunt me forever now. The wind roared outside Rusty's, shaking the warped shutters of the weathered tavern. The neon "Open" sign hummed faintly as I pushed through the door, its familiar creak slicing through the low buzz of thoughts in my head. Inside, the air hung heavy with the stench of stale beer and wood smoke, a dive where stories stuck to the walls like the grime on the bar. The place was deserted, though it wouldn't close for another hour. It had been a week since I'd last been here, since Lila's voice whispered on the wind, fading into the Ducati's turn signal flash at dawn, leaving me with a head full of questions and a jacket coated in red dust that reeked of stale perfume. Her words haunted me. You truly see me. Was I losing it? My thoughts were cut off by a familiar voice from the bar.
Well, I'll be damned. Thought you'd ridden off for good, kid. Where the hell you been? You're looking better,
Adam said, less worry on his face than last time. He didn't call me bro, which was a relief. I knew he only used that when he was pissed. Thanks, Tex, I replied, pulling up a stool. The vial of red dust in my pocket pressed against my thigh, heavy as a brick. Needed to clear my head. Been spending time out in the desert, I said, settling in. Adam raised a bottle of whiskey, eyebrow cocked. No, I answered his silent question. I've got questions. He nodded, a knowing glint in his eyes.
Figured as much,
he said, turning away. I watched him stride to the door, methodically pulling the string of the open sign and latching the front door, a practiced ritual. On his way back, his gaze locked onto mine, unwavering. He grabbed the remote, shutting off the TVs. You didn't need to close up, it could have waited, I said.
My office, kid,
he replied, brushing me off, heading to the back room. I took a deep breath, got off the stool, and followed. For over an hour, Adam sat and listened to my story. Lila, the Norton, the graveyard, the crash site she'd shown me in the fog. His face was a mask, no trace of intrigue, judgment, or surprise. His stoicism, forged from years of hearing confessions to brutal crimes, was downright intimidating. He barely spoke, just nodded occasionally. Just figured you deserved to know and that I ain't lost it. Yet, anyways, I finished, my voice quieter than I intended. Adam stared at me for what felt like an eternity before speaking.
Your father was special, Riley,
he said, glancing at a framed photo on the wall. Him and Dad, young and sharp in tailored suits, G-men in their prime. I always loved that picture.
He didn't lose his mind, he let his mind consume him. His powers of perception always spooked me. It wasn't natural, kid.
He continued, turning back to me. Just then, an old desk lamp in the corner flickered, its bulb buzzing erratically, like a trapped moth. I froze, heart racing. Was this real, or was I cracking like Dad? Get it together, Riley, I muttered under my breath, hoping Adam didn't hear. I'm not my father, Adam, I said, too defensive, forcing my focus back to him. He raised a single eyebrow, staring through me, oblivious to the lamp's flicker.
Kid, there was nobody with you at the bar that night.
He started, but I cut him off. I know. His eyebrow dropped, his whole brow furrowing into an angry scowl.
Did you know that at the time or later, during your sabbatical in the desert?
He asked, his tone sharp.
'Cause you literally told me to get lost. Your date was going well.
Frustration and a hint of venom edged his voice. He meant the code I'd used last time. Smile and wink, sunshine and rainbows. When I thought Lila was there. I know, I said, frustration seeping into my voice.
You know what? That it was in your head at the time, or that you said it.
He pressed, impatience growing. Both, I shot back. I wasn't sure at the time, but I had to test it, to be sure she wasn't actually there. Does that make sense? I blurted out, exasperated. Adam shook his head in frustration.
I'm not in your head, Riley. Spit it out. Make me understand.
I can't fully explain it, Adam, 'cause I don't fully understand it myself. Either she's real or a hallucination. And before your head explodes, hear me out. She isn't real, in a sense that you or I fully understand. But real, I explained, stumbling over my words.
A ghost, Riley?
He replied, almost mockingly. No bullshit, Tex, I answered, dead serious. We stared, eyes locked, each waiting for the other to move.
You said you have questions,
Adam said, breaking the standoff. I do, I replied.
Shoot,
he said. My father, when did it start for him? I asked. He took a deep breath, as if retrieving old files in his mind, then exhaled slowly.
He always had it, Riley, but it really started to consume him around the same age you are now. Whatever it was, he couldn't shut it off. It drove him mad. No amount of distractions or self-medication was enough.
He explained.
Like I've told you before, he had access to information. Unnatural perception. He knew things he shouldn't. He was in control until he wasn't. Like a faucet that wouldn't shut off.
Kind of like Lawnmower Man, I added, trying to frame it.
Whatever,
he grumbled, dismissing it. The lamp kept flickering, distracting me. Did he ever mention ghosts or anything like that? I asked, prompting a slight eye roll.
No, I wouldn't have believed him even if he did.
He answered. His words hit hard. Not what he said, but the realization. Adam was a grounding factor for Dad. Kept him anchored in reality, probably kept him sane longer than he'd ever know. I wouldn't respect you if you did, Tex, I replied, catching a hint of suspicion in his face. I mean it, I assured him. You're grounded in reality, not convinced of anything, unless you can prove it. Skeptical, yet open-minded enough to understand there's things beyond our comprehension. His suspicion confirmed, he chuckled.
Kissing my ass ain't gonna lower your tab, kid.
Of course not, I replied with an innocent smirk. Dad, though, he appreciated it, respected it, kept him sane for a long time, I continued, dead serious, wiping the smile off Adam's face.
Don't open that spigot, Lawnmower Man, or whatever metaphor you prefer, Riley. You get me?
He said, gruff but concerned. I have to, Tex. I don't have a choice, I stated.
I probably wouldn't respect you either if you didn't,
he replied, softer now.
But personally, I'd stick to wrenches, not hunches, if I were you.
I nodded, the vial in my pocket feeling heavier. The lamp had stopped buzzing, but Lila's words lingered in my mind. You truly see me, Riley, even how I am now. That's amazing. What did she mean? Was I truly seeing her ghost? My thoughts were interrupted when Adam's printer spat out a blank piece of paper. I watched his reaction, annoyance, like it wasn't the first time, a recurring glitch. "The lamp," I said, breaking his moment of irritation.
What about it?
He replied. "What's wrong with it?" I pressed.
Hell if I know, just started acting up today.
He answered. "The printer, how long's that been going on?" I asked.
Don't start, kid. It's probably just bad wiring in this joint,
He said, dismissive. "Probably," I agreed, keeping my tone casual. "How long, though? I've had issues at the shop, too," I continued as nonchalant as I could. He looked up from the printer, doubt in his eyes. "No bullshit, Tex. How long?" I asked again.
Little over a week.
He admitted, knowing where I was headed.
Go on, spit it out, kid. I'm not getting any younger and it's getting late.
He urged. On a hunch, I asked, "Was anyone asking about me here last week?" He stared at me, curious.
You mean other than the usual degenerates?
He said, acknowledging where I was leading. "Yes," I replied.
There was a fella asking about you. Wanted to know how good of a bike mechanic you were.
He said, dismissive. I figured the Norton's owner might have encountered Lila here. That wasn't a surprise. "What did he ask about?" I pressed, seeing where this led.
Not much. Just said he'd heard you were good with trouble bikes and I confirmed you were. Gave him your shop's location and that was it.
He answered. Now I knew the Norton's owner had been here. But the real question was, who else might have seen Lila? "You still keeping footage from the cameras?" I asked, already knowing the answer.
You know I do, kid. You want to cut the shit and tell me what you really want to know?
He asked, unamused at being interrogated. I hadn't described Lila in my story on purpose. I didn't want to play that card until now. "Women. Any new faces the last few weeks?" I asked, knowing damn well nobody walked into this dive without him noticing. His years of training and experience wouldn't let him miss sizing up everyone he'd ever seen.
There's always new faces, Riley. You asking for someone specific?
He asked, knowing exactly what I was after.
Your father would be proud, kid,
he said with a slight smirk, knowing I'd trapped him. After several minutes of describing nothing noteworthy, he mentioned a loner. Her. I zeroed in before he could continue.
Well, she's come around a couple nights over the last few weeks. Kind of sits around, people watching,
he explained. Does she ever talk to anyone? I asked, keeping my tone calm, flat, not wanting to show my hand.
Not that I ever saw, but she did ask me a few questions about you. Is that what you've been getting at, kid? This ain't my first rodeo,
he answered. Possibly, but that would be a real woman, not a ghost, I replied bluntly, cutting on purpose. What did she ask about me? I pressed.
Good, then we're on the same page,
he said, suspicion on his face.
I didn't want to feed into your delusions, Riley, otherwise I'd have started with that.
He admitted, blunt as ever. I expect nothing less, Tex. Continue, please, I responded.
She asked what type of person you were,
he went on.
Told her you were troubled, but your core didn't match the exterior. You might look like a degenerate and act like one sometimes, but you'd be a fool not to trust him.
He paused.
I could tell she wanted to know about your entertainment lifestyle, which I still disapprove,
he added, never missing a chance to lecture. Interesting, I said coolly. She ask anything else? I inquired.
Nope. She pretty much got her answer, I guess. I was busy, moved on to other customers, didn't see her after that.
He finished. I sat there in shock, fighting to keep my composure, poker-faced. The weight of this information crushed me. I wasn't losing my mind, or at least it didn't seem like I was. If that was Lila, Adam had actually spoken to her. The one question I needed to ask was the one I was most reluctant to voice. After what felt like an eternity, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the vial of red dust. I set the vial down on Adam's desk, its clink reverberating unnaturally loud in my mind.
What's this?
Adam asked, his tone laced with curiosity. Dust, I replied simply. From the desert, I added.
No red desert around here. How far did you ride?
he asked, a faint chuckle in his voice. Not far, I assured him. He glanced up from the vial, making reluctant eye contact, his expression weary, as if bracing for a long night. I'd like your opinion, Tex, on what the hell this is, I said.
Looks like red dirt or sand,
he answered, a trace of annoyance creeping in. Open it. It won't bite, I promise, I said, a slight chuckle escaping me. Reluctantly, Adam leaned forward, snatched the vial from across the desk, and eased back into his chair, clutching it to his chest. His eyes never left mine, his face a mask of stone. He cracked the lid open and shook the container, studying its contents with quiet interest. His eyebrow arched a few times, his expression shifting like an old analog gauge. After a moment he sniffed it, then sniffed again, certainty settling on his features.
Blood and patchouli,
he declared with unwavering confidence.
Where'd you find this?
He asked, his voice now tinged with the same intrigue I'd always imagined he and my father shared on a case. It's not important, I said coolly. What makes you say blood and patchouli? I pressed, my interest piqued by the patchouli revelation.
Kid, I've smelled enough old blood in my time to recognize it anywhere, and damn near every grass-smoking hippie in the 60s reeked of patchouli. Another scent you don't forget. Smelled bad then. This smells worse now. Please tell me you didn't...
I cut him off. No.
Good to know you didn't kill some burnout in the desert,
he said, half joking.
Seriously, Riley, this isn't a joke. Where'd you get it?
He pressed again, dead serious. I told you, in the desert, on my sabbatical. There's not much out there, but you can't miss it, I stated.
It must have been out there a long time,
he mused.
This blood's old, but not as ancient as you're implying, Riley,
he added, his gaze piercing through me. I'm not implying anything, Tex, I responded.
Bullshit, kid,
he shot back, his eyes rolling.
You want me to believe this is evidence of your ghost?
He snapped. I wanted your opinion. I really didn't know what it was or how long it's been there, I retorted with equal venom. I said the accident was a long time ago. I didn't say how long ago, I clarified. In your opinion, how long do you think it's been there? I asked, genuinely curious. The frustration eased from his face as he sniffed it again.
A year, maybe a little longer,
he answered.
Blood doesn't hold its scent much past that, especially in the desert,
he finished.
This doesn't prove your story, kid. It only proves you found smelly dirt in the desert,
he stated bluntly. I wasn't looking to prove my story, Adam, I said sincerely. I needed to know what it was, nothing more. I added honestly. It's getting late, I began, but he cut me off.
You want me to look at the tapes, don't you?
He said matter-of-factly. No, she's probably just some chick I'll run into eventually. Or maybe never. No big deal, I said passively, on purpose. I knew he wouldn't resist the chance to prove it was a real woman. Right on cue, he replied.
Good, I've got better things to do.
A glint of opportunity in his eyes. I know you do, Tex, I said with a smile, daring him to take the bait.
Evelyn's already gonna have my ass for getting home so late,
he sighed, more an excuse to end our talk tactfully. Tell her I say hello and apologize for keeping you from her, I said with a warm smile.
Tell her yourself, unless you want her to stay mad at you for not coming around,
he grumbled, annoyed. She can't stay mad at me. Not possible, I said, flashing a wide smile.
Maybe not, but I can and will if you don't find someone to settle down with,
he said with gruff concern. You know that's not fair, Adam, I started, but he cut me off.
Don't give me that shit, kid. You got more to offer than you think, and you'll find someone worthwhile, God willing, he stated.
Another sheet of paper fed out of his printer as he finished, derailing his train of thought. He smacked the printer in frustration. Can you hand me that sheet? I asked, half expecting some message to be printed on it. He looked at me, confused, but complied. I took it and grabbed a pen. You got an envelope, Tex? I asked. He opened a drawer, pulled one out and handed it to me. Thanks, I said, beginning to write. Once finished, I folded the paper, slipped it inside and sealed it.
What's this about?
He asked, concern in his voice as I handed it to him. "Information I shouldn't have," I replied. He flipped the envelope over, reading the title I'd written. "Open when you're ready to see." His gaze fixated on it, weighing heavy in his hand. "Good night, Adam," I said, rising from my chair. I continued, turning towards the door. "I'll let myself out. Tell Evelyn I'll stop by in a few days to catch up." I glanced back before exiting his office. Adam still sat there, envelope in his hand, lost in his thoughts.
"Night, Riley,"
he said, his eyes never lifting off the envelope. Outside in the parking lot, I sat in my Ranger, my heart still pounding, even though the adrenaline had long wore off. There was still one more man I needed to talk to, a man I long respected from a distance, mostly out of fear. The shop door groaned as I forced it open, the sharp scent of oil and metal flooding my senses like a distant memory. I flipped on the lights, the hum of fluorescence cutting through the stillness as I stepped inside, the Ducati lurking in the corner. A silent sentinel I don't yet understand. It's been a week since Lila's voice faded, since she whispered on the wind and vanished into the turn signal flash, leaving me with nothing but echoes and a vial of red dust that reeks of blood and patchouli. I tossed my keys onto the workbench, the clatter slicing through the empty shop. I set the vial beside them, its weight a quiet burden I can't ignore. Adam's words gnawed at me. Blood and patchouli. A year. Maybe a little longer. Too recent for Lila's '68 crash. So what is it? A ghost's remnant? A fresh wreck? Or my mind unraveling? I pressed my fingers to my temples, the ache behind my eyes, a steady throb. "Get it together, Riley," I murmured, the mantra I've clung to all week. I glanced at the new shop radio. Silent. No static, no whispers. For 7 days, I've waited for Lila to reach out. Through the air, the desert, anything. But there's nothing. Just me, alone with my doubts, riding the Ducati back to the crash site she showed me. Finding only more red dust, its stale scent clinging to me like a shadow I can't shake. Is she gone? Finally free of the Norton? I've held the dust like a lifeline, proof to keep me sane. But now I wonder if it's somehow keeping her at bay, blocking the pull that let her manifest beyond the Norton's grip. The Norton is lost, returned to its owner, who refused to sell despite my pleas. I fixed it, freed Lila from its hold, but its absence leaves me adrift with unresolved questions. That bike was a puzzle, a trouble bike to solve, a way to steady my hands and mind. Now, with it gone, I feel like a rider with no path. I've always been good at mending, bikes, problems, chaos. But this, I don't know where to turn. I think of Dad, how Adam said he knew things he shouldn't, how his perception consumed him. Adam called it a faucet that wouldn't close. Mom was pure Navajo, taken by a car accident when I was around 10, back when we all still lived in Texas. All that remains of her are foggy memories of those desert visits with family and a faint hum of her voice in my dreams. Neither Adam nor Dad ever spoke ill of her. They both respected her and my grandfather deeply. Dad was never the same after she died. Was there more to their bond than love? I never fully grasped their relationship. It always seemed beautiful, yet troubled somehow. Not fully belonging, I understand that now. Most assume I'm white, maybe Spanish, but an unspoken truth lingers. I'm not one of them. Did the world see their love the same way? I sink to the shop floor, back against the workbench, staring at the vial, now in my hand. Despite being alone and lost, there's still a place I can turn for answers. My grandfather, Mom's father, a Navajo medicine man, and tribal elder. I've always respected him. feared him even, with those eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. I haven't seen him since those childhood trips. I've cut myself off from my Navajo half because it never felt right. Dad's rejection, Adam's skepticism, my own need to stay grounded shaped me, and I buried it deep. But with Lila silent and the dust in my hand, it begins to click. Grandfather might know the curse of this land, my visions or hallucinations, but facing him terrifies me more than Adam's doubts. I rose from the floor, walked to the Ducati, and traced a hand along its tank, its cool steel steady yet mute. Has Lila bonded to my guardian? Is it protecting her as I suspected it would a week ago? Without her voice, it feels like cold metal again. I need her, need a path. But the shop's silence presses down, thick as desert heat. I've spent the week running, riding, searching, hiding, but I can't escape the truth. I'm half Navajo, torn between worlds I've never understood. Grandfather could unravel the dust's secret, the curse of this land. But to reach him, I'll have to confront the heritage I've fled. I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm out of roads to ride. I flick off the shop lights, intending to head to bed, but I feel compelled to linger in the darkness, defeated. The radio hummed to life, playing a Billy Idol song from the 80s, Eyes Without a Face. But it wasn't Billy Idol. It's a woman's voice, haunting, more chilling than the original. A cover, I thought, later learning it was Marceau, a far superior version compared to the mediocre original. Funny how that works sometimes, though that's beside the point. I stood in the dark, listening, as fractal shapes danced in my vision. Nice, I mused. Flashbacks from my psychedelic days, probably. The lyrics come in waves, some dull, others sharp, with clarity and vibrancy, like a message I needed to hear. It's metaphor, but I understood. The message was, I'm all out of hope, could bring a fall when I'm far from home. I spent so much time believing all the lies. It makes me mad at truth for loving what was you. Eyes without a face, got no human grace, your eyes without a face. Now all I can do, love what was once so alive and new. I'd better realize. Then the radio fell silent, plunging the shop into darkness. Clarity struck me. A map, even if the pieces didn't fully fit. Truths I cling to are incomplete. I need to return home. Home is my grandfather. Truth lies there. It's Lila reaching out. Eyes without a face, no human grace. She's been watching me all week, never manifesting. I have to find the truth before my fall. It's decided, I thought. The Ducati and I will ride to him in the morning, seeking truth, whatever it is. The Ducati rumbled beneath me as I rode out at dawn, the desert stretching wide and unforgiving under a pale sky. The road hummed with a rhythm I've known since leaving Texas, a pull that's kept me moving, searching. My grandfather's house was only a 2-hour ride away, yet guilt began to weigh heavily on my soul. I hadn't seen him since my mother's funeral, and long-buried memories surged as I rode. Her painted face, wrapped in a ceremonial blanket. My grandfather, my father, Adam, all dusted with ashes. The horse that carried her, the same one they sacrificed to carry her spirit to the afterlife. The men who performed the burial rites. The 3 days of fasting and solitude. How had I let all this fade from my mind? The vial of red dust jostled in my jacket pocket, its weight a constant reminder of Lila's silence and the questions trailing me like dust clouds. But now I head toward the reservation, toward my grandfather. The decision settled in me last night, born from that haunting song, and I can't turn back. The landscape shifted as I neared the reservation. the familiar desert giving way to scattered homes and the faint outline of sacred land I vaguely recalled from childhood. My stomach tightened. Those desert visits with Mom flickered in my mind, half-remembered laughter blending with the hum of her voice. I never belonged here either. Not really. The people I passed, Navajo faces, weathered by time and tradition, glanced my way, their eyes lingering a moment too long. I felt it again, that unspoken truth. I'm not one of them. Most see me as white, Spanish, or the occasional exotic. But here, among my mother's people, the disconnect cuts deeper. I'm a nomad, caught between worlds, riding a black horse that feels more like home than this soil ever did. I pulled up to a modest home, its adobe walls merging with the earth, and cut the engine. The silence rushed in, thick as the heat. My grandfather stepped out, his presence commanding yet calm, those piercing eyes locking onto mine. He spoke, his voice rolling in Navajo, words I couldn't fully grasp, but they stirred, something buried. Ya'atiye, shiye, di, hugan, shidi ah, he said, language rough and unfamiliar on my tongue. I caught home amid the flow, a word that echoed from childhood, but the rest slipped away, lost to years of neglect. I'd feared him since those trips, since his gaze seemed to see through me. I hadn't seen him since I'd buried my Navajo half deep, shaped by Dad's rejection and Adam's skepticism. But now, with the dust in my pocket and Lila's absence pressing on me, I felt exposed. He was expecting me. I sensed it in his steady stance, in the way he studied me without surprise. I dismounted, my boots kicking up dust, and met his gaze. I don't know if this is home, I admitted, the words heavy with doubt. I can't even understand you. He nodded, a quiet acceptance in his eyes. Not disappointment, but an expectation long held. You've strayed far, Riley, but the blood remembers. Come inside. We have much to uncover, he said. I hesitated, the Ducati's cool frame still under my hand, my guardian, silent now. The reservation felt alien, yet faintly familiar, a place I'd fled but couldn't escape. I'll follow him in, I thought, seeking answers to the dust, the curse, the visions, or hallucinations that haunted me. Truth lies here, but the road that brought me still called. Inside, the air carried the scent of sage, earth, and other unfamiliar traces I couldn't place. We sat across from each other, and after a long, uneasy silence, he spoke. You are seeking Hojo, he said, his voice steady. I couldn't respond. I wasn't entirely sure what he meant. Guilt twisted in my gut again, a familiar ache. Harmony, Riley. You are searching for it, he explained in English. No, I replied, shaking my head. I'm seeking truth. I have questions that need answers, I continued, my voice firm but uncertain. Yes, Riley, harmony, that is the truth you seek. His gaze pierced straight into my soul as he spoke, an intensity I remembered from childhood. It was unsettling, to say the least. In his presence, there was nowhere to hide, not even in my own mind. Relax, Riley. Everyone fears the doctor, but there's no reason to. We don't bite, he said, a well-earned smirk tugging at his lips, followed by a soft chuckle, likely honed over years of knowing how intimidating he could be. How is harmony truth? I asked, my tone humbler, my shoulders easing. He stared at me, through me, for what felt like an hour. You are in great conflict, Riley, he finally stated. How did he know anything about me? We hadn't seen each other in years. Sure, anyone who looked at me could see I was troubled, especially lately, but his matter-of-fact tone suggested he knew far more than he should. "First things first," he said, noting the discomfort on my face. "Adam called me last night, concerned about you." He paused, either for effect or to let the revelation sink in. Before I could even attempt to respond, he continued, "Yes, we speak frequently about you, about other things as well. I've known Adam for a long time. He does many things to help the reservation. Does that surprise you?" he said and asked, fully aware that it did. "What?" was the only response I could muster, still reeling in shock. "Why do you think he moved closer to here from Texas?" he asked, blunt as ever. "There are many things you do not know or fully understand yet, Riley." I just sat there, jaw likely on the floor, with nothing to say in response. Adam, such a skeptic, still tied to the reservation, and my grandfather, long after my mother's and father's deaths. "Why?" I blurted out, utterly confused. "Adam is a man of great honor, Riley. We do not always see eye to eye, share the same beliefs, or seek the same truths, but there is a mutual respect, a harmony. Did you know your father saved his life? Of course you didn't. A man of honor like Adam pays his debt without question or validation from others," he explained, pausing to let me digest the weight of his words. My father saved Adam's life? That was something I had never heard, not from Dad, not from Adam. It would certainly explain his paternal guidance toward me after Dad died, but the reservation? That made no sense. Dad was never part of it. Adam's government connections and law enforcement experience implied protection, which also didn't add up. Not since he retired years ago. "Why? What debt?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. He didn't answer immediately. He just stared through me again, but this time it didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt calming, as if he shared in my confusion. "I don't know what debt he placed upon himself. You'll have to ask him," he responded, his tone calm and soothing. "Your father never placed one upon him, but I suspect he knew it was your father's abilities that saved him and where they came from," he continued gently, easing my turmoil further. That made sense. It sounded like Adam, a true salt-of-the-earth man of God. He lived on honor and duty, but I knew there was more to be said about it. "I know nothing about my dad's abilities. I only know whatever he had drove him mad enough to take his own life," I stated, craving the truth. My grandfather rose from his seat without a word. He retrieved a small glass from a table and approached me, extending his hand to offer it. "It is time for medicine, Riley," he said, as I slowly took the glass from him. "What's in it?" I asked, a flicker of concern in my voice. "Harmony," he stated, turning back to the table. I sniffed it. The smell was foul, likely tasting even worse. "Answers for the both of us," he continued, now facing me, a glass of his own in hand. He chanted in a whisper, words I couldn't understand even if I could hear them clearly, then drank the contents in one swift motion. He smiled, warm and inviting, as he gently set his glass back on the table. "Drink, Riley. Trust me, trust the medicine. Let go of your doubts and fears forever," he stated with a confidence I'd felt with Lila a week before. His words haunted me. Had I heard them before? Was that how I knew what to say to her? I looked down at the glass, hesitation gone, and drank it down in one large gulp. "I've had worse," I thought, as I placed the glass on the arm of my chair, the bitter taste lingering on my tongue. The effects came swiftly, a creeping warmth spreading through my limbs. But it wasn't just physical. My vision shimmered at the edges, colors bleeding into fractals. Vivid reds and golds pulsing like a heartbeat against the sage-scented air. Whispers filled the room. Not just my grandfather's chants, but voices layered beneath, speaking in Navajo, English, all at once. yet I caught fragments of each, as if my mind had cracked open to receive them. The auditory chaos grounded me, a tether to the ritual, but the deeper shift within my head stole my breath. My thoughts unraveled and rewove themselves. Threads of ideas I'd never grasped before weaving together with startling clarity. I thought of Lila, the red dust, the curse of the land, my father's madness, my mother's songs, all at once. Not as disjointed pieces, but as a single, intricate pattern. Neural pathways I didn't know existed flared to life, my mind expanding to hold multiple concepts in perfect coherence. I reasoned through the connections effortlessly. The dust wasn't merely a remnant, it was a thread, tied to some ancient ritual my grandfather had guarded, a balance against the industry of lost souls that plagued this land. My own sensitivity, buried for years, stirred, hinting at a gift I'd suppressed. The gateway widened, and I received flickers of knowledge I shouldn't have. Visions of ceremonies long past, my grandfather's presence in my mind, not as words, but as a guiding pulse, whispering of my people's harmony with the earth, now fractured by industry. Yet it wasn't just clarity, it was a strain. My strengths emerged, my intuition, my capacity to absorb this flood of information, sharper than I'd ever known. But my weaknesses gnawed at me, my fear, my disconnection. The years of fleeing had left me half attuned. I teetered on the edge, the gateway threatening to overwhelm me if I couldn't steady myself. My grandfather watched me, his piercing eyes unblinking, seeing it all. "Your mind is strong, Riley," he said, his voice cutting through the psychedelic haze. "You receive more than most could endure. Your mother's Navajo spirit flows in you, attuned to the unseen, but you've resisted it too long. You're not fully open. The ceremony will guide you." He paused, his gaze softening. "There is more. Your father, he carried a heritage you must know." The words hit like a thunderclap. My father was half Apache? Before I could process, another wave crashed over me. The gateway flung wide and a torrent of stimulus flooded in. Visions of warriors on horseback, Apache chants blending with Navajo hymns. My father's face contorted in anguish as he fled the reservation, the red dust swirling like blood in the air. Revelations piled on. His abilities weren't madness, but a seer's gift, passed through Apache blood, a legacy I inherited. The land's curse stemmed from the industry of lost souls, and I carried the weight of that disharmony in my own fractured identity. My mind reeled, neural pathways blazing as I grasped it all at once. But it was too much. I staggered, overwhelmed, my breath ragged, the room spinning as the fractals deepened into a chaotic whirl. He rose, steadying me with a hand on my shoulder. "Breathe, Riley. The medicine reveals what you are. The blood remembers, even when you forget." He stepped back, his demeanor shifting to one of quiet resolve. "It is time for the ceremony," he said, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "The ritual will bring you Hojo to discover who you truly are." He led me outside, the desert night cool against my flushed skin. A small circle of stones awaited, smudged with sage and cedar, the air thick with their sacred scent. He handed me the vial of red dust, its contents glowing faintly under the starlight. "This dust," he explained, "is a bridge to your past, to the harmony you've lost. We will reclaim it tonight, for you." He began to chant, Navajo words I couldn't understand, but felt in my bones, his voice rising and falling like a wind across the dunes. I poured the dust into the center of the circle as he instructed, and the air shifted, charged with a deep resonance. The medicine's effects surged again, but this time I was ready. My mind opened fully, the gateway no longer a threat, but a path to myself. I saw my own history, my mother's Navajo spirit in her songs, my father's Apache blood and my restless nomadism, the white world I'd clung to in my mechanical focus. They weren't separate. They were me, woven together in a harmony I'd never understood until now. My intuition, my sensitivity, my seer's gift. They weren't burdens, but strengths, pieces of who I truly was. The fear and disconnection melted away, replaced by a clarity that anchored me. I spoke words I didn't know, a blend of Navajo and Apache, my voice steady as I claimed my identity, no longer running from it. My grandfather nodded, his eyes glistening with pride. You found it, Riley. Hojo. The harmony you sought, the truth of who you are. He smiled gently, adding, the harmony is the choice to embrace all parts of you, Riley, to partner with them rather than battle them, or surrender wholly to one alone. The circle of stones glowed faintly, then dimmed, the air lighter than before. I stood there, no longer a nomad adrift, but whole. My true self awakened, my next purpose clear. The next day, I found myself within the confines of a humble earthen sweat lodge, the echoes of my grandfather's modified blessing way ceremony from the previous day and night still reverberating in my mind. It had been only yesterday, yet it felt like an eternity had passed. My brain had bounced off its rev limiter for far too long. I now lay drained, sapped of all vitality, leaving me lightheaded and adrift. The lodge's intense heat enveloped me, a suffocating embrace that seemed to dissolve the boundaries of my body. Yet within that haze, I felt the threads of my multi-layered heritage, Navajo spirit, Apache blood, Anglo-pragmatism, woven together in perfect harmony, no longer at war within me. My skin bore the remnants of the ceremony, painted symbols in ochre and black, adorned with beads and silver jewelry, gifted by the elders during the rituals that had stretched until dawn. The weight of the adornments grounded me, a tether to the earth, as my mind slipped further into the unknown. Time ceased to exist in that lodge, its concept unraveling like smoke caught in a gust. I sat cross-legged, slipping in and out of consciousness, my body heavy yet weightless, as though some unseen force had injected me with a slow-dripping elixir. It wasn't the sharp intensity of the medicine from the night before. This was a gentler unraveling, a slowed-down remix of visions and revelations, seeping into my bones through gradual absorption, followed by a quiet understanding. What I saw weren't mere dreams. They were vivid, tangible, shared experiences of my peoples, Navajo, Apache, and Anglo, spanning the distant past and bleeding into the present. I lived their strength, their moments of weakness, their struggles etched in blood and dust, their victories carved into the land and their defeats. I felt what they feared, shadows that loomed beyond the firelight, unseen forces whispering in the dark, and what gave them strength, the unyielding bond to the earth, the songs that carried their spirits forward. In fleeting moments of awareness, I glimpsed my grandfather or other elders, their silhouettes blurred by the heat, their chants a low, rhythmic hum that seemed to pulse with the lodge's heartbeat. When full consciousness finally returned, it was cold and dark, a stark contrast that jolted my senses. Through the cracks of the lodge, I saw the warm glow of a fire outside, its flickering light bathing the interior in an amber haze, as though the walls themselves were breathing with the flames. I became hyper-aware of the desert symphony, the crackle of the fire, the faint howl of a distant wind, the whispers of my grandfather's chanting, weaving through it all like a thread. Rising from my seated position, my limbs unsteady but resolute, I stepped out of the lodge. My grandfather sat alone by the fire, his figure illuminated by the dancing flames, his voice a rhythmic whisper directed into the heart of the blaze. I sat across from him, the warmth and glow of the fire soaking into my chilled skin, a comfort that felt like coming home. Within the flames, I saw visions, distorted yet decipherable shapes of faces, landscapes, symbols, shifting like memories I couldn't quite grasp. I watched, in trance, for what felt like moments, but could have been hours, until they faded, along with my grandfather's voice. I looked up from the flames, meeting his gaze. He was already watching me, his eyes steady and knowing. 5 days, Riley, he said, his voice calm and gentle, answering the question I hadn't yet voiced but burned in my mind. I'm starving, I rasped, my throat raw as sandpaper, the words scraping their way out. He smiled, a quiet understanding in his expression, and motioned with his head and hand to the side. My gaze followed, landing on a drop-off, a cliff or bluff, its edge barely visible in the darkness. I stood, my body protesting with each movement, staggering slightly in my weakened state as I walked toward it. Below, a body of water shimmered faintly in the moonlight, a creek, a pond. I couldn't tell in the dark. Perhaps 20 feet down. I glanced back at my grandfather, his hand still outstretched toward the edge, and he nodded, a silent encouragement. Turning back to face the void, I leapt. The wind rushed past me as I fell, a biting cold that sharpened my senses, and then I plunged into the water. The shock was ecstasy, every receptor in my skin igniting at once, the icy embrace enveloping me completely. The water was refreshing, a deep cleansing that washed away the lingering haze of the lodge, purifying my body and spirit, as if the earth itself were absolving me of my past conflicts. In that submerged stillness, I slipped into another universe, a realm where time dissolved and the boundaries of my mind expanded beyond the physical world. I lingered there, lost in its embrace for what felt like an eternity, minutes stretching into an unknowable void, unwilling to leave its otherworldly serenity. When I finally resurfaced, gasping for air, I heard faint shouts from the edge of the water, an elder's voice tinged with alarm, as if he'd feared I'd drowned. A laugh escaped me, raw and unrestrained. That was amazing, I called over to him, my voice echoing over the water, a testament to the exhilaration that still pulsed through me. He stood at the edge, lantern in hand, his expression softening as he motioned for me to follow. Come, Riley. You must eat, he said simply. I hauled myself from out of the water, the frigid night air gnawing at my skin, as I trailed him up a path that led back to the fire, where my grandfather remained seated. The flames roared and sputtered, casting wild, dancing shadows across the desolate desert expanse, their glow etching deep lines into his weathered face, his eyes gleaming with a reflective intensity as he tracked my approach. Nearby stood an older woman, one of the many elders whose fleeting presence had haunted my fragmented recollections of the past several days, through the ceremony and the sweat lodge. Her form, a familiar yet ethereal silhouette against the firelight. She cradled a rolled horse blanket in her arms, her warm, comforting smile laced with a playful glint in her eyes, as if my drenched, disheveled state struck her as oddly endearing, almost cute. She murmured a few words in Navajo, their meaning crystallizing in my mind as a gift, and she extended it toward me. A downward glance revealed my predicament. clad only in sodden boxer shorts, my body quaking and exposed, my legs buckled beneath me, fingers quivering from the cold. The exhaustion of 5 days without food, the relentless heat, and the plunge's jarring shock. With a sheepish nod of thanks, my cheeks burning with embarrassment, I draped the blanket around myself, its coarse wool texture, a rough but welcome embrace against the chill. I settled across from my grandfather once more, the fire's heat seeping deep into my marrow, my heightened senses still thrumming from the lodge's visions and the water's embrace. The blaze seemed to pulse with life, its flickering light conjuring fleeting shapes, faces, cryptic symbols, the faint, unmistakable outline of a woman I knew all too well. "Grandfather," I started, my voice finding a steadier cadence despite the rasp clawing at my throat. "The woman in the flames. Her name is Lila. She's still here, isn't she? In the dust?" My words lingered in the air, heavy and unresolved, the fire's crackle filling the void. He nodded, slowly, his gaze piercing despite the flames writhing between us, never wavering from mine, as if measuring the depth of what he might unveil. "Yes, and no, Riley," he replied, his voice low and deliberate, burdened with a truth aged by time. "The red dust you found is a combination, the essence of the afterlife Lila should have journeyed to, mingled with the remnant of our rituals. We used ceremonial red sand, infused with her perfume, patchouli among its scents, and sacrificial blood to strengthen her fight against being consumed by the Norton. Her spirit is tethered to that dust, a remnant of something that no longer fully belongs to this world." He elaborated, then pressed on. "Her spirit could not rest, could not pass into the next world. When we found her body, weeks after her death, she had already been bound to an evil spirit, the Norton. Why she still lingers is unknown. She is free to pass now, yet she fights to remain." He fell silent, prodding the fire with a stick, unleashing a spiral of sparks into the night. There are places, crossroad places, where the worlds bleed into each other. The dust marks one of those breaches, a fingerprint of her struggle where she waits. I leaned forward, my heart hammering as fragments of understanding began to lock into place. I showed Adam the dust. "He knew what it was, didn't he?" I declared, my tone more a statement of conviction than a question. Grandfather's lips twitched into a faint smile, a glimmer of something enigmatic flickering in his eyes. "Adam and I have known things for a long time, grandson," he said, his tone cryptic yet steady. "We've been watching those places, keeping the balance. But you're seeing it now, feeling it. She needed you to free her of her bonds, the Norton." His voice deepened with concern. "To sacrifice you for her freedom, a trade. Trapped spirits will often sacrifice others when necessary. You were reckless, Riley. You are lucky to still be here." A trace of anger roughened his words as he finished. The fire flared briefly, as if underscoring his warning and her latent threat. And in its glow, I saw her again, Lila's silhouette, her form woven from swirling red dust, her eyes pleading. I turned back to my grandfather, a blend of clarity and unease settling over me like a shroud. "Yes, she was going to sacrifice me," I stated, my words an attempt to soothe his worry. He responded with a raised eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity etching across his face as he leaned forward slightly. His eyes narrowed, his interest not in the fact of her intent, but in how I had evaded her snare, how I hadn't succumbed to her lure. "Tell me everything, Riley," he demanded, a grave concern threading his tone. "I will, grandfather, but can we eat first? I need you to tell me everything about Adam, the crossroads you mentioned," I replied, my voice still hoarse and strained. "Of course," he answered, a warm smile breaking through, as if the urgency of the moment had momentarily eclipsed his awareness of my days without food. It mirrored my own single-minded focus, that hyper-attuned state I knew all too well. Yet there was more. He looked forward to answering my questions, a subtle eagerness I could sense beneath his calm exterior. A few days had passed since the fire-lit conversation with my grandfather. The exact count, lost to the fog of deep, dreamless sleep and the slow restoration of my strength. I'd eaten ravenously that night. Simple, hearty food, prepared by the elders. Fry bread, mutton stew, and blue corn mush. Each bite anchoring me, pulling me back from the brink of exhaustion. My body had demanded rest after the meal, the toll of the 5-day fast, the lodge's searing heat, and the plunge's shock finally overtaking me. I slept in a small hogan on the reservation, its earthen walls and cedar beams, a sanctuary of stillness, the desert's rhythmic whispers lulling me into oblivion. When I finally woke, my mind felt honed. The haze of the ceremony lifted, replaced by a crystalline clarity. My muscles still bore a dull ache, a lingering echo of the ordeal, but I felt whole. My Navajo spirit, Apache blood, and Anglo-pragmatism no longer clashing, their harmony a steady rhythm within me. It was early morning when I emerged from the hogan, the sun just cresting the horizon, bathing the desert in hues of gold and amber. The air was crisp, laced with the faint scent of sage and wood smoke from lingering fires. My packed bag rested at my feet. I knew it was time to leave, to ride out and face whatever lay ahead, but not before I got the answers I needed. My Ducati waited nearby, its black frame gleaming in the dawn's light, a steadfast companion for the journey to come. As I walked toward the edge of the reservation, where the dirt path met the open expanse, my boots crunching softly on the sandy earth, my mind churned over the conversations of the past few days. I had told grandfather everything about Lila, her initial intent to trap me in the Norton's grasp, a desperate trade for her freedom, and her reluctant shift after realizing who I truly was, her fight to save me instead. His relief had been palpable, though a shadow of grave concern still clung to his expression. I'd tried to reassure him, emphasizing my understanding of women as my saving grace. He'd given me that familiar, disapproving look, one I'd grown used to from Adam, before replying with a slight grin, "Nobody knows women, Riley, not even women." I'd laughed, conceding, "Fair enough. I understand women well enough then." Those days had been a balm, reconnecting with him, observing our shared traits, our humor often mirroring each other in tone and delivery. The tension that once hung between us had dissolved. He still intimidated me, but it was different now, more a quiet awe than fear. He'd also spoken at length about the mixing of cultures through bloodlines, unraveling why I'd never felt I belonged anywhere. On the surface, it was the obvious, visible differences that unsettle others, but the true reason ran deeper, beyond the erosion of cultural identity and traditions. Blood carries memories, he'd said, encoded with information that shapes a person's spirit, soul, essence, whatever you call it. In me, those memories clashed, carrying conflicting impulses that bred turmoil and conflict within. People crave an identity, a foundational framework to ground them, but I'd only ever looked at the surface, missing what truly set me apart. Physically, yes, I was different, but fundamentally, I was a unique fusion. His concern, my father's concern, and Adam's had always been which traits would manifest in me. With no blueprint to guide them, they could only wait, as lost as I'd been, until the right moment for guidance arrived. My rite of passage, so to speak. My three heritages had converged at their maximum potential all at once, a rare alignment. In my blood ran my father's Anglo-pragmatism, an investigative mind, a mechanical aptitude, a mirror to Adam's own traits. I shared his knack for understanding machines, a talent grandfather revealed went deeper than skill. Even machines have a spirit, he'd explained, just like the spirits that cross into our world. Some benevolent, some malevolent, others indifferent, merely serving their purpose. My nomadic Apache blood fueled my restless urge to roam, my lack of roots always at odds with my father's grounded life, and my mother's Navajo blood gifted me the ability to tap into the unseen, visions, a profound connection to things, even machines, ironically, making me a better mechanic through that spiritual bond. I reached the edge of the reservation where my grandfather stood, his silhouette framed against the dawn, the weight of our last conversation, still a quiet presence between us. "Grandfather," I said, my voice clear now, the hoarseness erased after days of rest. "I'm ready to hear about Adam and the crossroads you mentioned. I need to know everything before I go." He turned to face me, his eyes steady and knowing, a faint smile tugging at his lips as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "That's not my place to say. That's for Adam to tell you," he replied, his tone matter of fact, though the faint smile on his face widened, a knowing glint in his eyes as if he'd just downplayed a grand adventure to a child, fully aware the destination was a place of wonder like Disney World. A flicker of uncertainty stirred in me. I couldn't tell if I should be thrilled or wary. "Do you have the ritual items?" he asked, referring to the ceremonial sand and a few other elements, some deemed taboo, and rightfully so, in traditional Navajo culture, their inclusion a nod to the hybrid ceremony we'd conducted. "I do," I answered, gratitude threading my voice for the tools I'd been entrusted with. "Your ancestors will guide you once you begin," he reassured, his hand resting firmly on my shoulder, a grounding weight. "You'll make the right decision in the moment, whatever path it takes." His words carried a quiet confidence as he finished. His gaze shifted toward my Ducati, its sleek form waiting patiently nearby, and his smile stretched ear to ear. "Your horse awaits," he declared, a playful pride in his tone. I knew the bike's appeal, its classic lines, modern edge, a seamless blend of style, beauty, and raw power, but I sensed his fascination ran deeper, beyond its surface traits. "What do you see?" I asked, my curiosity genuine, eager to understand his perspective. "Benevolence, Riley. Protection, freedom, a guardian, yet not whole," he replied, pausing before continuing. "A black horse, not traditional, but a horse nonetheless." His words lingered, imbued with meaning I could feel, but not fully grasp. "What would make it whole?" I pressed, seeking clarity. His gaze drifted back to me from the bike, steady and enigmatic. "That is for you to decide," he said, response that answered nothing, yet everything. I nodded, the weight of his words settling in, their meaning clear in their ambiguity. He lowered his hand and began walking back toward his Hogan, the Ducati directly in his path. I watched as he strolled, his pace unhurried, and when he reached the Ducati, he paused. I thought I caught a faint chuckle escaping him, though I couldn't be sure. Then he turned back to face me, his grin as wide as I'd seen in days. "I love it," he said, his voice warm with amusement. "It's perfect," he continued, before turning back toward his Hogan. What the hell was that about? I thought to myself, the moment lingering like a riddle I couldn't yet solve. An hour later, I was riding out of the reservation, the Ducati's engine a steady growl beneath me, my destination locked in. Adam. It was Sunday, so Rusty's would be shuttered. I'd find him at home with Evelyn. Fuck, I muttered aloud, the realization hitting me like a jolt. I'd promised to stop by and see her a few days after my last visit, nearly 2 weeks ago now. I drew a deep breath, bracing myself for the unknown that awaited beyond the door, then exhaled and knocked. The screen door swung open, revealing Evelyn, her face alight with a beaming smile. "Riley," she exclaimed, flinging the door wide and enveloping me in a hug so tight it threatened to crush my ribs. "I'm sorry, I began to apologize, but she cut me off with a brisk, "Oh, hush and get inside, into the AC." Breaking the embrace, she tugged me into the house with a firm pull. "Adam Riley's here," She called toward another room, her voice carrying a triumphant edge. "I told you he'd stop by," she added, matter of fact, as if settling a recent debate about my arrival. The scent of food hit me, rich and tantalizing, stirring the hunger that lingered despite my recovery. "I smell food. It smells delicious," I said, my voice tinged with anticipation. Adam emerged from the other room, his gruff tone cutting through as he quipped.
"What makes you think you're going to eat my food, kid?"
A chuckle escaped me, but before I could retort, Evelyn interjected. "Knock it off, Adam. Look how skinny he is." Her words drew a slight eye roll from him, sparking a laugh from me as I shrugged, a wide grin spreading across my face. "I told you," I said, resisting the urge to gloat.
"Shut up, Riley,"
he shot back, his tone dry. "Seriously, Riley, how long were you out there?" Evelyn asked, her question confirming a call from my grandfather to Adam about my impending visit. "I'm not sure, to be honest. You know how terrible I am with time," I replied, earning a small eye roll from her. A faint, solitary laugh rumbled from Adam in the background. "Well, I made extra," she said, her gaze locking onto Adam with a subtle, "I told you so" gleam. "Pot roast, one of your favorites."
"Enough jawing,"
Adam grumbled, as if he'd been itching to eat.
"Let's dig in."
Their banter always amused me. From the outside, the relationship might seem confrontational, but I knew better. They were a formidable team, always guarding each other's backs. They brought out the best in one another, sometimes despite themselves, a testament to a solid partnership forged over 25 years of marriage, learning to work together through imperfections, to build a foundation as unyielding as brick. I'd always admired that resilience. Dinner hit the spot, a warm reunion steeped in light, friendly chatter. Evelyn regaled me with updates on her flowers and paintings, mentioning the greenhouse Adam had built her shortly after they moved here 5 years ago, a project that had expanded her hobby into a passion. As she spoke, a memory surfaced of his struggles with the plumbing for the water misting system, drawing a quiet laugh from me as I listened. At one point, she asked, "Riley, have you found a girl yet? A good one?" Her question triggered a laugh from me. "No," I replied. "I'm still searching. I may have finally found one, but I'm not entirely sure she's a good one yet." Glancing at Adam as I spoke, his lack of amusement sobered me, my laughter fading with a heavy sigh as I looked down at my empty plate, guilt settling in for the unintended jab. "Whatever happened with Jess?" she pressed, her tone turning serious, the question striking me like an electric jolt, unexpected, not painful. I met Adam's gaze, his unspoken, "Go on," etched across his face. "We weren't compatible," I stated. "I never really liked her anyway," Evelyn countered, prompting another eye roll from Adam. "That's not fair, Evelyn. She was a good girl," I said, remorse creeping in. "I was the problem," I finished. "She's been married, 3 times since you two broke up. Maybe you weren't the problem," she argued, defending me. "No, she was lost, just like me at the time. Still is in a way. Maybe if I'd been a different man, then we'd still be together," I reflected, causing a frown to crease her face, as if she'd just heard the closing line of a tragic play. "We still talk all the time. We still get along. Our split was mutual," I added, lifting the mood. "In fact, we get along now better than we did when we were together," I admitted, the truth of our distant, supportive bond clear. "Would you like some pie?" she asked, steering the conversation back to warmth and friendliness. "You know I do," I replied, a smile returning. After dessert, she rose, gathering my plate and Adam's. "I can help," I offered, starting to stand. No, I've got it, Riley. You and Adam have a lot to talk about. You boys go do your thing," she said, her warm smile a gentle dismissal. Adam and I stepped into the greenhouse after dinner, following Evelyn's not-so-subtle nudge. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, but Adam halted abruptly, just inside the threshold.
"Evelyn, do not get her hopes up. Do not ever deceive her like that again. Do I make myself clear, Riley?"
he said, his voice cold and detached, his back to me, the words slicing through the humid stillness. Shame weighed heavy in my chest as I replied, "You're right, Adam. I got carried away in the absurdity of the situation. I meant no disrespect or to be deceptive, my tone laced with regret. He turned to face me, his expression hard.
Good,
He stated bluntly, then pivoted and continued deeper into the greenhouse.
Don't think for a second the irony isn't lost on me, kid. Of course, you'd find yourself a good woman who's been dead for decades and tried to kill you.
He muttered, half aloud, as he brushed past a row of orchids, inspecting their delicate petals with a distracted air. His words caught me off guard, disarming me completely. Who was this man? I'd braced for a fight, expecting his usual gruff reprimand, but here he was, not only acknowledging the truth of Lila's ghost, but implying he'd known all along. I stammered, struggling to form a response. But he cut me off sharply.
I ain't got all night to listen to you stutter with that stupid look on your face. I'll do us both a favor and cut through the shit.
He snapped, fixing me with a look that pinned me like a child, his head nodding slowly, eyebrows arched in expectation. I stared back, utterly bewildered, shock rendering me mute.
Good,
He said, taking my stunned silence as assent.
I'll take that look on your face as a yes. Your grandfather Riley, he's a great man, one of the few I respect down to their core. Your father was another.
He paused, his gaze steady, ensuring I wasn't too dazed to absorb his words.
Anyways, he feels you're ready to hear what I'm about to tell you. Don't dishonor him by proving me right.
He continued, his tone heavy with skepticism, making it clear he doubted my readiness. I'm all ears, Adam. I need to know, I replied, my voice firm with newfound confidence.
Well, all right then,
He responded, then strode to the corner of the greenhouse, where he opened a panel I'd assumed was merely electrical. He flipped a sequence of breakers with deliberate precision before closing it. A few seconds later, the center of the greenhouse floor rumbled and parted, revealing a hidden staircase descending into darkness. He gestured for me to head down, and I complied, reluctance gnawing at me, Adam trailing close behind. You and Evelyn, I began, but he shut me down with a gruff.
Shut the hell up, kid.
At the bottom of the stairs, lights flickered on, revealing a subterranean space roughly 20 feet long by 15 feet wide, with 3 doors branching off, likely to other rooms, I figured. A faint hum emanated from the monitors, adding an eerie undercurrent to the scene. It felt like a scene ripped from a spy movie, though far less glamorous. Desks were scattered with maps pinned to the walls, marked with lines and colored pins, alongside file cabinets, monitors, and computers. Standard office fare, but with an air of secrecy. Another stairway, possibly an entrance from inside the house, caught my eye. It made logistical sense, though I couldn't be sure. The doors bore keypad locks, hinting that the real intrigue might lie behind them. Adam settled at one of the desks, motioning for me to take the seat at the desk beside him.
Have a seat, kid,
He said. As I sat, the entrance we'd descended through sealed shut with a low thud. I watched, wide-eyed, unable to hide my amazement.
This ain't nothing, Riley.
He said, his tone dismissive of my awe. He leaned back in his chair, his expression unyielding, and began to explain.
I'm not retired. I work for an off-record agency, a division, if you will. Not officially part of the FBI or any other organization. I transferred here about 5 years ago for strategic purposes, officially retired from the FBI. That's why Evelyn and I moved here. The division started about 15 years ago, growing into what it is today. Myself, your father, and, reluctantly, your grandfather were among the original founders. I now lead it. Your grandfather could be considered second in command, though he despises formal titles.
He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over me. My father? A founder? The thought jolted through me, a piece of my past I'd never glimpsed.
You understand me, Riley?
He asked, impatience edging his voice. Yes, continue, please, I replied, a torrent of questions bubbling up, though I knew their time would come. He pressed on.
As I'm sure your grandfather explained, we don't always see eye to eye, share the same beliefs, or find the same truths. But we fundamentally agree on one core element, the one that matters. Right and wrong. benevolent and malevolent. There are things in this world neither of us fully understands, things that happen, things we can prevent. Our main goal here is to keep people safe from those things as best we can, without causing panic or fear among folks in this great nation. We each bring a perspective vital to this mission's success. I focus on the things that go bump in the night, and he focuses on that realm you want to marry into.
He paused again, his last remark a pointed jab at the Lila situation. I tried to respond, but my words tangled into stutters. I faltered.
Spit it out, Riley,
he barked, cutting through my hesitation. So many questions, Adam, I blurted, the words spilling out like verbal chaos.
In time, Riley. Just listen for now,
he said, his tone uncharacteristically calm, a rarity for Adam. As he leaned forward, hands clasped, his focus unwavering. After several moments that stretched like hours, I found myself lost in thought, staring into the void, weighing the flood of questions swirling in my mind. I knew I had to select the most vital one, the question that mattered most. This was a test, a crucible to prove my readiness. Our earlier exchange at Rusty's had likely been a trial as well, a subtle vetting I hadn't fully grasped until now. Adam cast occasional glances at the monitors, as if tracking some unseen signal, while I wrestled with my thoughts. Finally, I broke the silence, my voice slipping out almost unconsciously as my mind churned. "Why, though?" I muttered aloud, barely aware of my own words, so deep was I in reflection.
Why what?
Adam snapped, jolting me back to the present. "Why, Adam? Why the test at Rusty's, and why are you telling me all this now and not before?" I clarified, my tone steadying as I met his gaze. His expression shifted from boredom to intrigue, then softened with a trace of pride.
Your instincts are solid, Riley, but don't rely on them so heavily,
he said.
That being said, yes, it was a test. More of a vetting, really. There are forces of and not of this earth that pose a danger, and you never know when or where they'll find you. I needed to ensure you weren't consumed by something not of this world.
He paused, raising an eyebrow as if to say, "You catch my drift, kid." The word consumed echoed. My father had let his mind devour him, and I recalled Adam's hand hovering near his shotgun, ready to act if needed, the pieces clicking into place. I knew the question I wanted to ask next, but held back. There'd be another time for that. I nodded in acknowledgement, signaling I grasped his meaning.
We risk infiltration all the time, Riley. This isn't a game or a movie. People die. Your cover will keep you alive.
He continued, poised to elaborate, but I cut him off. "You want me to join the division," I stated, my voice brimming with confidence. "You said not to continue to rely so much on my instincts. Your cover will keep you alive. The first implies future training to hone them. The second was a warning of the consequence for letting my guard down," I finished, my assurance unshaken. Adam's face lit up, beaming for him at least like a proud father might.
Very good, Riley. Your father would be proud. He was a master at reading between the lines,
he said, a wide smile breaking through. But that smile vanished as quickly as it came.
Your grandfather wants you here working with us. I'm extremely reluctant,
he added, his tone turning cold and detached. "You want to keep me safe. You don't think I'm ready, but you like the idea of me being here to keep a better eye on me," I replied, fully understanding his detachment as a shield. His eyes locked onto mine, radiating a silent pain. In that instant, I saw it clearly, his hardness toward me since my father's death. His casual nudges for me to move closer all stemmed from a desire to protect me, even from myself, to mold me into a better man than my father had become. He couldn't save him, but he might help me save myself. "Thank you, Tex," I said, gratitude thick in my voice. For a fleeting second, I glimpsed a shimmer of moisture in his eyes before the gruff mask returned.
I checked the tapes, kid, while you were off playing in the desert,
he said, shifting gears.
You'll find them interesting.
I nodded, turning toward the monitor on his desk. I scooted my chair closer for a better view, following his gaze. "What did you find?" I asked, my curiosity genuine. We watched a few edited clips, and then he paused the video. Adam stood behind the bar, a decent crowd milling about the tavern.
Watch.
He said, hitting play. In the footage, he remained nearly motionless, almost in a trance, as people moved around him, until after a few seconds, he stepped away to speak with someone at the bar. "What did I just watch, Tex?" I asked, suspecting I already knew the answer.
Watch this.
He said, pulling up another file. The low-quality outdoor footage showed the parking lot long after the bar had closed. Me pulling up on the Ducati, dismounting, and walking to where Lila had stood that night, though she was absent. "That's embarrassing," I admitted. And then it clicked as Adam stared at me, waiting for me to connect the dots. "Wait, so the first video was the girl you talked to who was asking about me?" I blurted out.
Exactly.
He confirmed. Then he opened another file, methodically advancing frame by frame until he stopped. There was Lila, standing alone in a corner, her eyes unnaturally bright, reflecting like a deer caught in headlights.
That's her.
Adam stated, retrieving the envelope I'd handed him 2 weeks ago before I could confirm it.
Information you shouldn't have.
He mocked, echoing my own words from that day as he unsealed it. Inside was the letter I'd written. Brunette, porcelain skin, gray eyes, red dress, alluring. A vintage Bond girl. He looked up from the letter, his focus returning to the screen. A soft creak of the stairs announced Evelyn's presence before her voice broke the silence from behind us. "Who is she?" she asked. Startled, I turned to face her, while Adam's gaze remained fixed on the monitor. I hadn't realized how long she'd been there or heard her approach.
I have no idea.
Adam responded after a tense pause.
But Riley's gonna find out. His grandfather said she will be the final challenge in his rite of passage.
He added, now facing Evelyn. She nodded, then turned to me. "She's beautiful, Riley, but dangerous," she said, concern shadowing her eyes. I knew her worry wasn't for my safety. She'd pieced together that this was the girl I'd joked about earlier, my expression betraying the truth, as much as her gaze revealed her real concern. She forced a smile to ease the tension. "I just came down to see if you boys needed anything and to check how it was going. The suspense was killing me," she said with a laugh. Her laugh injected a much-needed burst of levity into the tense air, transforming this heavy exchange from a mere data dump into a genuine human moment. Even Adam's rigid posture softened slightly, the weight on his shoulders easing for a breath. "Well, I'll get back upstairs and let you two continue," she said, steering the moment back to business with a gentle resolve. Adam offered her a warm smile as she turned away, and I realized she'd descended not just out of curiosity, but to be his emotional anchor. Overwhelmed by the flood of information, I hadn't paused to consider how taxing this revelation and the prospect of my joining the division might be for him as well. "She knows," I stated, breaking the quiet that followed her departure. He turned to face me, his expression tinged with regret.
"Yes,"
he replied, the word carrying a hint of sorrow.
"Not everything, but she knows enough to keep her safe. She doesn't want to know everything. He
finished. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling before he spoke again.
"If you join Riley, there are sacrifices you will need to make. Your name, for example, there is power in your true name. You will be given a new name."
I cut him off, excitement bubbling up like a child's. "A code name?" I asked, my voice bright with anticipation.
"An alias, Riley,"
he said, utterly unamused, his tone flattening the enthusiasm.
"Your grandfather suggested one. I can't help but feel like he chose it purposely to annoy me,"
he continued, but I interrupted again. "Black Horse?" I asked, my enthusiasm waning, hoping it wasn't the one. Adam's eyebrow lifted slightly, a subtle reaction to my tone.
"As I was saying,"
he pressed on,
"I don't think it was meant to annoy me, which makes it perfect, Mr. Black Horse,"
he finished, a grin stretching ear to ear. I knew it, I thought. That explained my grandfather's chuckle and his fascination with the Ducati. I felt like the punchline of an inside joke nested within another inside joke.
I told him you'd love it, which makes me smile.
He continued, that grin lingering.
You don't choose your alias, kid, it's earned. For some reason, people think I speak with an accent,
he said, his voice turning serious. I gave him a look that asked, you're kidding, right? He shrugged in response.
I don't hear it, but whatever. Your grandfather always called me it, and it stuck,
he said, a slight chuckle breaking through his gruff exterior. What is his alias? I asked, curiosity piqued.
The singer,
he answered, flat and matter-of-fact. Both aliases made sense, and unfortunately, so did mine. Perhaps I'd grow to like it, I thought, though doubt already crept in.
There are more serious sacrifices, but it's getting late and we can discuss those at another time. I don't think your nomadic lifestyle will be in too much conflict with them anyway,
he said, shifting the focus. What would I do in the division? I asked, trying to mentally anchor myself in this uncharted world.
In short, we need you to be a liaison, investigator, negotiator, and possibly an enforcer,
he answered, his tone straightforward.
If you decide to join, you will be given training, lots of training. I'll ensure you are cleared for access, but it's up to you to earn the respect of the instructors and fellow recruits. There is no favoritism here. Your grandfather and I expect nothing but the best from you. Do not dishonor either of us, understood?
He finished, his stare piercing through me. The last thing I ever want to do is let either of you down, I replied, genuine emotion threading my voice.
It's settled then. Go home, get some rest, deal with your drama, and get back to me. I won't accept an answer tonight, nor will I allow you in until you do. Your father and I did the best we could to make you a man worth a damn. Let's see if your grandfather's polishing has produced a diamond or a stone,
he said, concluding all he had to impart for now. Upstairs, I hugged Evelyn goodbye, on my way out the door, telling her, I'll be back to see you as soon as I can. The hesitation stemmed from my reluctance to repeat my usual vague promises of soon or in a few days, which we both knew stretched the truth generously. I sat outside on the Ducati for a few minutes before starting it, lost in a swirl of thoughts and questions. I had much to digest mentally over the next few days, but first, I had to find Lila. Our reunion would shape my next path, whatever that might be. I fired up the bike, leaving the neighborhood as quietly as possible, unwilling to shatter the night's stillness. More than 2 weeks had passed since I last returned to the shop, and rolling into the lot stirred a mix of familiarity and estrangement, as if I were visiting an old comrade rather than coming home. As I pushed open the door, a wave of familiar scents engulfed my senses. Oily metal, aged wood, and a hint of gasoline. Stronger now, yet oddly dormant, as though they'd lain neglected, awaiting rediscovery. Then a sharper odor cut through. Yep, I muttered aloud, as the stench of trash overdue for removal and the sour tang of spoiling food assaulted my nostrils. For the next 4 hours, I tackled the fridge, hauling out the kitchen waste, driven not by necessity, but by a relentless focus to restore order. The shop area and small apartment upstairs had always been my haven of cleanliness, but the 10 days before my journey to my grandfather's had left them in disarray. My personal transformation since demanded I purge those lingering traces of chaos from my life. Tasks I'd deferred for months were finally addressed. A need to align my surroundings with the newfound harmony within me taking hold. Once finished, I lingered under a long, hot shower, rinsing away the road dust and desert grit from my travels. Settling onto my worn leather couch, refreshed yet unmotivated to start a movie, I simply sat, soaking in the grounded stillness of the moment, as if I'd exorcised several demons from my space. When I purchased the place 2 years ago, it was little more than a weathered relic of Route 66, a former glorified gas station. The previous owner had begun converting into a motorcycle shop before selling it off. It was affordable, meeting my basic needs: shelter, a workspace, and a home. Nothing extravagant. The 60-foot by 40-foot structure boasted stunning desert vistas, its charm lying in its raw potential. The 4 gas pumps had vanished long ago, but their weathered awning lingered, casting shade over empty ground. The 2 service bays remained, equipped with operational lifts, a significant boon. The customer area, a spacious 15 by 20 foot space, once housed shelves stocked with road snacks, drinks, maps, and traveler's essentials. At the rear, ample storage awaited parts and goods. Above, the second floor held a 2-bedroom apartment, a patchwork home to generations of station and shopkeepers. I built upon the previous owner's efforts, fully transforming it into a motorcycle shop as my primary focus, though I retained the auto lifts for the occasional car or truck repair. One service bay now stored bikes, while the other housed 2 bike lifts. I repurposed the customer area into a modest showroom and a gathering spot for people to linger. It was straightforward, functional, yet now it demanded change. My mind buzzed with ideas, sketching plans in my head, refining details with meticulous care. I'm not certain how long I sat there, lost in a meditative trance over them. Glancing at my phone, I noted the late hour and resolved to rest. Morning would arrive too swiftly, heralding the next chapter of my path. When I awoke, the morning had stretched well into its later hours, and I rose feeling refreshed, the deepest, most restorative sleep I'd known in a month, perhaps longer, unmarred by dreams. Just a profound, unbroken peace. Energized to seize the day, I had tasks awaiting me. After dressing, I ate the scant remnants salvaged from the fridge the previous night, then rolled the few bikes out of the storage bay to make room. I maneuvered the Ranger inside, intent on ensuring she was primed for the journey ahead. The desert stretch I needed to reach offered no roads, and while the truck wasn't the ideal vehicle for this venture, I held a quiet confidence in her ability to endure with minimal trouble. Once I'd given her a thorough once-over and declared her fit, I stowed my backpack in the truck bed alongside an empty cooler. Behind the extended cab seats, I secured my Winchester Model 94, a few boxes of 30-30 ammo, and assorted supplies. On the passenger seat, I placed my Colt Trooper Mark III, a relic by modern standards, yet a cherished companion from my father's hands, ever present on my desert treks. I backed the Ranger out of the bay, poised to depart. A final check confirmed I had the essentials, and I jotted a list of what I lacked. Food and water, chief among them, to procure en route. I rolled into Hank Carver's general store 15 minutes later, list in hand, confident he'd stock most, if not all, of what I required. "Hey, Riley," Hank greeted as I stepped inside, his voice a warm rumble. "Hey, how's it going?" I replied, approaching him with a nod. "I'm headed out to the desert for a bit and need a few things," I continued, extending my hand in greeting. He clasped it with a grip like a bear trap, firm yet welcoming, his calloused hands a testament to years of rugged work. "I gotcha, what you need?" he asked, eager to assist. "Not much," I responded, lifting my list to read from, but he gently took it from my grasp to scan it himself. "I've got most of that," he said with unwavering confidence. "Awesome," I replied with a grin. "Hey," he called over to his daughter, who lounged behind the register, boredom etched on her face, headphones cocooning her in her own world. She reluctantly slid them off, casting him a look of subtle irritation. "Gather up these things for Mr. Riley, please," he requested, his tone firm, yet laced with warmth. "That's not necessary, Hank. I began, but he cut me off. "No, she's not paid to stand there keeping the floor from floating away," he said, more to her than to me, a hint of jest in his voice. She sauntered over, snatched the list from his hand with a touch of sass, and flashed me a smile. I returned it with, "I'm sorry, I tried, really I did," my tone serious, yet tinged with sarcasm. "How are things going at the shop?" Hank asked as she walked off. "Okay, I guess, steady work for the most part," I answered. Hank was a customer, a good man, easygoing and laid back, the kind who needed no effort to project toughness or intimidation, his towering frame well over 6 feet, and the bulk of a professional wrestler doing that for him. He carried a calming presence wherever he went, a gentle giant. "Seen the shop looked empty for a while. Figured I'd ask," he stated, subtly probing for an explanation. "Yeah." I rode out to the res with the intention of maybe a day or two, but it turned into a few weeks instead, I answered, addressing his unspoken curiosity. Ah, the res? That's a bit of a hike. Good ride, though, he responded, piecing together the mystery of my absence. 2 weeks? He asked, his curiosity piqued. Family, it had been too long since I'd been there. I had a lot of catching up to do, I replied, drawing a faintly confused look from him. My mother, she was Diné, Navajo, I clarified, restoring clarity to his expression. No shit, that's cool, man, he said with a genuine smile. I just saw that you were out of town, so kept an eye on the place for you best I could, he continued. Thanks, appreciate it, man, I responded, my gratitude sincere. No problem, any time. This another excursion you're taking now? He probed. No, I don't think so. Maybe a day or two at the most, I said, uncertainty threading my tone. Right, he responded, sarcasm dripping from the word. I'll keep an eye on the place for you until you get back, he finished, stepping away to answer the store phone. Thanks, I replied as he moved off. Hank's house wasn't far from the shop, and I had no doubt he'd watch over it. Here you go, Mr. Riley, Maddie said, pushing a cart toward me. Thank you, I said, taking it and heading to her register. No problem, I was bored anyways, she replied, her voice heavy with teenage angst. She rang up my items, bagged them efficiently, and I handed her cash once she finished. She smiled, passing me the change. Wish I was going with you, she said, catching me off guard. That bored? I replied with a light chuckle. My humor didn't land, and she shot me an annoyed glance, rolling her eyes in exasperation. Well, it's not a vacation, if that makes you feel better, I stated, matter of fact. No. Then why are you going out there? She asked, genuinely perplexed. There's something I need to take care of. It's personal, I explained, a note of reservation in my voice. I turned to Hank, still on his call, and waved goodbye. See you around, Maddie, I said, heading to the door. The weight of this journey began to settle heavily upon me. 3 hours into the desert, the world was just me and the ranger, its tires chewing through rugged trails where roads had long vanished. The truck was a beast, steady, uncomplaining, a mule, as my grandfather might have called it with a wry grin. The engine purred, its temp gauge unwavering, the stock suspension shrugging off the rocky terrain. Mid-spring kept the heat bearable, maybe 90 degrees with the sun dipping toward the western horizon, casting long shadows that warned of sunset's approach. Grandfather always said my ancestors would guide me during the ceremony, but out here, I felt no whispers, no nudge toward the sacred spot I sought. Maybe I was blind to their signs. I knew the rough area, but that was all. Another hour of driving, wore on the ranger, and me. I cut the ignition, stepped out, and grabbed a cold bottle from the cooler, gulping it down. A hat, I muttered, irritation biting my voice. Why the hell didn't I bring one? The sun's glare mocked my oversight. I scanned the horizon, piecing together my bearings. Somewhere north of Alameda, probably, on the east side of the Canadian River. That much I could pin down. I needed to focus, to let instinct take over, to feel the pulse of the land. Then it hit me. The ram, I said aloud, the realization sharp. I'd passed it earlier, its proud silhouette etched against the sky, but I'd dismissed it as nothing. Out here, I'd seen plenty of wildlife. Coyotes, hawks, snakes, but not today. The desert silence was deafening, and that ram's presence carried weight. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with water bottles, and slung it over one shoulder. From the passenger seat, I retrieved my Winchester, a smaller bag, and the keys from the ignition. The Colt was already snug at my right hip, a familiar weight. With the Winchester slung over my left shoulder and the small bag, holding the ceremony's heart, clutched tight, I trekked back toward to where the ram last stood. Minutes later, I reached the spot, but the ram had vanished. I climbed the rocky ledge where it had stood, proud and stoic, watching me. At the top, I caught my breath and scoured the ground. There, its tracks, faint but clear, leading off into the distance. I followed. The ram's tracks drew me deeper into the desert, the sun a fiery sliver on the horizon, its fading light staining the sand with hues of blood and shadow. The air thickened with each step, my boots crunching over the scuffed terrain. To the south, a faint rustle caught my ear. An inquisitive coyote stood amid the brush several yards off, probing my presence with wary eyes. We shared a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement, before it darted back into the cover of the rugged landscape. I pressed on, following the tracks. Darkness loomed close, and I needed to pursue them while they remained visible. The trail descended into a low canyon, its walls rising along the east and west. With twilight teetering on the edge of night, I decided to make camp. It took mere minutes to pitch my small tent, lining its interior with the horse blanket gifted to me days ago by the tribal elder, its coarse weave a comforting anchor. I gathered a modest pile of wood, arranging a fire ring with nearby stones, and had the flames crackling and roaring by the time blackness swallowed the desert. I sat, gazing into the dancing flames, losing track of time as shapes and figures flickered within them, indistinct, like a TV signal struggling through static. A sudden hunger broke my trance, my eyes locking onto my backpack. I hadn't even checked the meals Maddie had picked at Hank's general store. Back then, my mind had been too fixed on the journey ahead, my list simply noting freeze-dried meals. I reached in, expecting little, but found myself pleasantly surprised. Chili mac, beef stew, chicken and rice, 2 breakfast skillets, a perfect mix and quantity for 2 nights in the desert. Despite her teenage angst and sharp sass, Maddie had clearly listened to my exchange with her father, choosing with care. She was growing into a thoughtful young woman. Despite herself, I mused, a smile tugging at my lips as I chuckled. The thought stirred memories of myself at her age. Reckless, stubborn, but learning. "Thank you, Maddie," I said aloud, gratitude and relief softening my tone. I dug into my pack again, pulling out my Stanley Adventure pot, nestled alongside my MSR pocket rocket and fuel canister. Chili mac, I decided, would be tonight's meal. An hour after eating, I sat by the fire, still trying to decipher the elusive shapes in the flames, when a low growl rumbled from the west. I knew its source before I turned. A black bear lumbered from the trees, pausing to survey the scene. My hand instinctively crept toward my Winchester, my heart thundering as we froze, each sizing the other up. Then, a realization struck. The ram, the coyote, now this bear. I'd seen no wildlife all day, not even a bird. An anomaly as striking as the sudden flurry of encounters over the past few hours. My hand shifted away from the rifle, reaching instead for the small bag my grandfather had given me for this journey. I eased it open, retrieving a small container of corn pollen. Rising slowly, I faced the bear. It swayed slightly, as if torn between flight and charge. I approached with deliberate, soft steps, my left palm open at my side, my right hand offering the container. Closing the distance, I halted and the bear reared up. I opened the container with care, sprinkling the pollen onto the ground, and stepped back, widening the gap between us. The bear dropped to all fours, lumbering toward the offering, sniffing cautiously as it approached. It reached the pollen, inspecting it for what felt like an eternity while I stood frozen, my heart pounding against my ribs. Satisfied at last, it turned and ambled back into the trees, vanishing into the darkness as if our encounter had never occurred. I exhaled heavily, no memory of holding my breath, relief washing over me in waves. I shook my head, still breathless. "Holy crap, Riley. It's time for bed," I mumbled, my voice trembling with the aftershock. I stirred at dawn, the desert cloaked in an eerie silence. Despite the bear's unsettling visit, my sleep had been restful, strangely soothing. I cast a suspicious glance at the horse blanket, its traditional Navajo shapes and symbols weaving a hypnotic spell over me. A saddle blanket, I realized, not a horse blanket, and chuckled softly at my own oversight. So much of my heritage still lay waiting to be rediscovered. Dreams, I blurted, the words shattering my waking haze. My dreams had been a tangle of conflict and harmony, sorrow and joy. But one image burned brighter than the rest, a Joshua tree, encircled by small stones. The vision was hazy, its clarity slipping from my grasp like sand through fingers, leaving only fragmented echoes behind. I packed my gear into my backpack, murmuring another thanks to Maddie for the breakfast, then picked up the ram's tracks and pressed north in pursuit, the sun just cresting the horizon. The terrain soon turned rocky, the jagged ground making pursuit a grueling task. I found myself backtracking, caught in frustrating loops, my irritation mounting as the sun climbed directly overhead. Seeking respite, I settled in the shade of a tree to heat up some stew. As I took my first bite, I glanced eastward. There, atop a rock ledge, some 200 yards off, stood the ram I'd been chasing, its gaze fixed on me. We locked eyes as I ate, a silent communion, its hooves scraping the ledge with a faint, urgent rasp, until it turned slowly northeast and vanished just as I finished my meal. I reached its perch, but it was gone. Scanning for tracks, a sudden commotion erupted about 50 yards away. Branches snapping, rocks tumbling from the direction the ram had taken. The noise was too heavy for a ram, I thought. Then came a haunting cry, a ring-wraith's wail, straight out of Lord of the Rings, followed by shorter, barking echoes of the same eerie tone. A shiver ran down my spine at the unearthly sound. An elk? I muttered aloud, puzzled. It made little sense. This rugged terrain wasn't their typical haunt, and the location felt all wrong for a herd. I slid my Winchester off my shoulder, chambering around with the satisfying clack of the lever action, and crept toward the tree line to investigate. I edged through the tree line, Winchester clutched tight. The lever's clack, a fading echo in my mind, against the charged desert air. The commotion, splintered branches, scattered rocks, that ring-wraith wail, and its barking echoes clung to my skull, a nightmare that wouldn't fade. I tracked the chaos to its source, a young bull elk sprawled on the ground, its breaths ragged and shallow. Mortal wounds marred its body, deep gashes ripped across its hide, punctures and tears carved into its neck. Holy shit, I muttered, pity lacing my voice. This bull was done for, its life seeping into the dirt. Its eyes locked with mine, brimming with fear, suffering, and a glint of regret. A loner. Strayed from its herd, it had wandered too far, unprotected, and paid the ultimate price. I raised my Winchester, aligning the sights between its eyes, never breaking our gaze. In that moment, its stare pleaded, not for salvation, but for release. I lingered, the weight of its pain pressing against my chest, then slowly squeezed the trigger. The crack of the shot ricocheted off the canyon walls, its echo fading into the desert as the ringing in my ears dulled. I held my stance, Winchester steady, then slowly lowered it. With a deliberate pull, I worked the lever, the spent casing ejecting with a faint ping as it struck a small rock, matching the lingering hum in my head. I scanned the surroundings, eyes darting through the brush, ears straining for any hint of what had torn into the bull. Nothing stirred, no rustle, no snap. I fed another round into the Winchester's chamber, its soft clack piercing the heavy silence. Kneeling, I eased my backpack off, still sweeping the area for movement, especially up in the shadowed branches. My fingers found the empty shell, tucking it into my pocket, then pulled an empty water bottle from the pack. I approached the bull, bottle in one hand, Winchester in the other. Kneeling beside its still form, I set the bottle beneath a deep puncture wound, letting its blood pool inside. When I'd gathered enough, I sealed it and rose, turning back to my pack. As I slung it over my shoulders, a flash of movement stopped me cold. 15 yards west, a mountain lion stood, its sleek bulk nearly invisible against the brush. I froze, heart kicking, then eased back, never turning from its gaze, edging northeast along the ram's path. The lion shadowed me, but paused at the bull's carcass. Our eyes locked as I halted, and in hers, I saw exhaustion, a bone-deep weariness. From the corner of my vision, 2 cubs slipped from the undergrowth, their small forms hesitant. A mother, feeding her family. That's why she'd risked such a brutal strike. I slung the Winchester over my shoulder, giving her a slow nod, a gesture of respect born more from awe at her fierce will to provide than for her alone. Her eyes softened, relief flickering through them, the silent promise of no further fight. I turned, resuming my journey, the weight of her stare fading behind me. The ram's tracks eluded me for hours, the rocky terrain thwarting my pursuit until the ground softened at last, the setting sun casting long shadows over the trail. After a quarter mile of steady tracking, I stepped into a small clearing nestled among the trees. A flash of last night's dream seized me. A Joshua tree loomed near the clearing's heart, its gnarled arms stark against the fading light. I eased my backpack off, propping the Winchester against it. This was where I'd camp tonight, the end and beginning of this journey. Approaching the tree, I studied its base. A ring of small stones, weathered by time, encircled the ground a few feet away, not touching the tree but forming a ceremonial boundary. Faint symbols, carved and painted, clung to the rocks, their outlines barely visible, eroded by centuries. The tree itself stood ancient, a silent witness to ages of history and wisdom, its presence heavy with secrets. As twilight dissolved into the desert's black silence, I sat in quiet meditation, the tent pitched, my chicken and rice devoured, the fire roaring within the ceremonial ring. The past weeks had flooded me with questions and answers, a torrent I needed to sift through. I reached into the small bag my grandfather had given me, drawing out the vial of red dust, fused with Lila's remnant and the ceremonial sand he'd used to try freeing her from the Norton. I uncapped the bottle of elk blood, blending it with ash from the fire, and traced the mixture across my face in deliberate patterns. My grandfather had warned this wouldn't be a traditional ceremony. My mixed blood clouded my sight, he'd said, and I'd need medicine to open my mind. But it came with risks. The ash would shield me. I pulled the plastic baggie of medicine from the bag, swallowing it with a gulp of water. As I waited for its effects, fragments of recent conversations surged through me. My grandfather's voice lingered. You'll make the right choice, whatever it is, when the time comes. I understood his faith in me, yet the choice, free Lila or bind her, remained a knot I couldn't untie. Adam's sly grin flashed, his quip about marrying into Lila's world hitting too close. Lila fought to stay, no longer bound to this world, yet tethered by her own will, my grandfather had said. What did she want? A warmth spread through me, my nerves crackling with electric tension, a restless readiness simmering within. The medicine was kicking in. Your ancestors will guide you, my grandfather's words echoed as the first wave hit. I began chanting, the words foreign yet familiar, spilling from me unbidden. The flame's shapes sharpened, clarity washing over me like a tide. The weight of my ancestors' shared lives nearly overwhelmed me, but I was braced for it, ready. This entire desert trek was a ceremony, a rite of passage. The absence of wildlife, then the sudden encounters. It was them. The ram, my guide. The coyote, approaching from the south, a positive sign. The bear heralding rebirth into a new world. The elk, a sacrifice, a reminder of the old path I'd left behind. The mountain lion, a nurturing spirit, fierce and protective, offering guidance. Lila. Another wave crashed, and I became them, living their lives as my own. The ram's unerring path through the desert, the coyote's sharp trust in the unseen, the bear's emergence into a new dawn, the elk's lonely fall for another salvation, the lion's fierce devotion to those she guarded, entwined with Lila. I was each. In that moment, I saw myself. The ram's guidance growing within me, the coyote's intuition sharpening, the bear's rebirth unfolding, the lion's partnership with Lila blooming. But the elk's sacrifice cut deepest, a part of me, the loner, the wanderer, that had to die for my rebirth. The medicine's power surged, and I saw, truly saw, as Lila had said weeks ago, her essence before death and the spirit she'd become after. A red glow pulsed from the Joshua tree, the crossroads heart. Energy lines wove through the desert, threading the sky, alive and vibrant. Sounds roared, every desert whisper, amplified past distortion, mingled with alien hums of machines and unnameable things. Just as it peaked, threatening to shatter me, it stopped. Deafening silence. Utter blackness. I floated there, suspended in nothingness, time stretching into eternity. A faint orange glow emerged before me, coalescing into the fire's flicker, illuminating only the Joshua tree.
Hello, Riley.
A voice called from behind the tree. Lila's, clear and warm. The first time I'd heard it in nearly a month. Joy surged through me, her gray eyes meeting mine as she stepped from the shadows, her presence radiant and timeless. Lila crossed the clearing and settled opposite me by the fire. Her porcelain skin, flowing dark hair, red dress, and gray eyes still hypnotized me the same as the first day we met. Except here in this place, her presence was calming, soothing.
I missed you, Riley.
She said, her warm smile laced with excitement and anticipation. I missed you too, Red, I replied, relief softening my voice. Where you been? I asked, my curiosity genuine.
I'm not really sure.
She answered, her gaze drifting as if piecing together an unfamiliar dream. Do you know how long it's been since the last time we saw each other? I pressed.
I'm not sure. Time moves differently for me now, ever since we rode to your shop. I was forced to leave as dawn broke over the horizon. I lingered for a few moments while transitioning, long enough to see your pain.
She explained, sorrow with a hint of guilt in her tone.
I was able to gather enough strength to say only a few words, to let you know that I was still there, with you.
She finished, tears beginning to form in her eyes. You've been here ever since? I asked, compassion and understanding in my tone.
Ever since?
She confirmed with a nod. Did you reach out to me through the radio like you did before? I pressed further, attempting to piece together the whole picture. Confusion hit her face hard.
No.
She shot back in response, defensive.
Riley, there are things here that can...
She began, but I cut her off, not knowing how much time we had. I know, Red, but I think I know who it was, I explained, creating more confusion and concern in her gaze. What were you thinking? What were you hoping? While you've been here? I asked, piecing it together. Lila hesitated, a flush of embarrassment giving way to vulnerability.
I was hoping you would be able to find me somehow, that you'd realize what had happened, but mostly, I was in turmoil. I couldn't see you, but I could feel you. There was no way for me to communicate with you. I couldn't even show you I was still here, waiting.
She confessed. You were eyes without a face, had no human grace, I responded, piecing the mystery together in my head.
Yes.
She burst out, tears now falling. I smiled warmly, compassionate. It was the Ducati, red, I explained, fully understanding, optimism in my tone, lifting the mood.
Yes,
She blurted again, understanding and relief in her tone, a smile breaking through her sorrow.
I can feel the Ducati as well, but it's distant, just beyond my reach, like it won't fully let me in.
She explained, wiping the tears from her eyes, laughing at the absurdity of it all. It's been protecting me, I realized. From what, though? I freed you, Red. Why did you stick around? Why didn't you move on? I asked, already sensing the answer.
Do you want me to move on, Riley?
She countered, a trace of hurt threading her voice. That's not what I'm implying, Red. You don't belong here anymore. I thought you wanted freedom, the ability to move on, free from the Norton. I responded, a hint of uncertainty creeping into my tone.
I did want freedom, to escape the Norton. I've been fighting the pull to move on since that night, and it's getting harder and harder to remain. It's not safe for me here.
She explained. Why? Why have you fought against it? What continues to keep you here? I asked, the urgency of needed truth in my tone.
You, Riley. I had just found you. I don't want to lose you. I'm scared to move on. I have nothing for me on the other side.
She revealed, her voice vulnerable, pleading.
I stay for you.
She added, her words hanging heavy. I know, Red, but I don't want to keep you here. To prevent you from... I began. But she cut me off, her tone sharp yet calm.
We made a deal, Riley.
Her eyes locked with mine, devoid of hostility.
A promise to each other. I have no intention of ever breaking that promise. You are and forever will be the only one I've ever given my complete heart and soul to.
She explained, the words carrying a profound weight for us both. She smiled, warm and open, pleading for my acceptance. Same for me, Red. That's why I'm here, I explained, my words an affirmation she needed to hear, feel. I watched the waves of relief wash over her as I spoke. It's settled then, I said, revealing the Ducati's headlight from behind me. It flashed a dull beam as if beckoning to be heard. We don't have much time, I urged. I reached into the bag my grandfather gave me, removing all of its contents and laying them out before me, one by one. An eagle feather, an ancient arrowhead, a leather cord, a rattlesnake rattle, a pouch containing a blend of pollens and medicines, a pouch of ceremonial sand, a small pottery bowl, a bear tooth, and a piece of turquoise stone. I looked up at Lila. This is gonna get weird, I explained, a faint smirk tugging at my lips.
All of this is weird,
She replied, smooth and unruffled. Seriously, I won't fully be here when it starts. But trust me. Trust the ceremony, I stated, my voice steady and grounded. She nodded once, acceptance and understanding gleaming in her eyes. I rose from my seated position, placing the arrowhead, eagle feather, turquoise stone, and bear tooth into the shape of a diamond on the ground, representing the 4 cardinal directions. I then unwound the leather cord, crafting a circle around them. In the center, I positioned the small pottery bowl and emptied the pouch of pollens and medicines into it. With a stick, I gathered ash from the fire, stirring it into the bowl, and began chanting the rhythm my grandfather had taught me. Once blended, I continued the chant, sprinkling the mixture outward, tracing the circle with care. Then I took the pouch of ceremonial sand, emptying it into the center. On top, I placed the Ducati's headlight, its beam no longer illuminated. I uncorked the vial, containing the fusion of ceremonial sand and Lila's essence, sprinkling it slowly over the headlight. When the last grain fell, I ceased chanting. I reached for the bottle of elk blood, the sacrifice necessary for my rebirth, the symbolic death of who I was, the path I was on. I slowly poured it around the circle, chanting a different rhythm, one of reverence, honoring the young bull. Once the circle was complete, I grabbed the rattlesnake rattle and began shaking it, steady and purposeful, matching the rhythm my grandfather had drilled into me. 2 different rhythms at once, the rattle, my chants. It took all of my concentration to maintain them both. I stopped suddenly, as both rhythms reached their simultaneous crescendo, their echoes carrying off into the darkness where I saw figures and shadows, waiting for their opportunity to exploit my resolve. I glanced at Lila, her face alight with intrigue. "I'll see you on the other side, Red," I said, grinning. She nodded again, silent, trust and acceptance in her eyes. I turned my focus back to the circle and resumed chanting, syncing my voice to the rattle's rhythm. The medicine's effects surged through me again, a jolt of electric energy and strength, my ancestors merging into the space we occupied, into the ceremony, then into me, hitting like a crashing wave. Just before the wave fully engulfed me, a coyote's call echoed in the distance, barking rapidly, its high-pitched wails blending into the rite's cadence, a positive sign. The next morning, I awoke in my tent, no memory of what transpired, after the coyote's barks joined the chorus of the ceremony. I was physically exhausted, beyond what the 2-day trek through the desert warranted. Mentally, my mind was drained, battered by the overwhelming flood of medicine and the merging into the crossroad where Lila had waited. My protections and ancestors had kept us safe, but I glimpsed things there, entities lurking, poised to exploit any weakness, to breach the opening I had created and flood into this world. Holy shit, that was intense, I mumbled, the hangover of the experience weighing on me. I rolled over, draping the saddle blanket across my face to block the light, and fell back asleep. I awoke again several hours later, still drained but no longer hollow. After packing up my tent, I ate the last meal Maddie had selected for me. The meager breakfast skillet struck me like a feast, a memory that lingers as one of the most satisfying meals I've ever tasted. I knew I couldn't linger in that place. It wasn't safe to stay longer. With the sun nearly overhead, I began the hike back to the Ranger, uncertain of the distance I'd covered, unprepared for another night in the desert. "Birds," I said aloud, after an hour of hiking. They'd been absent the past 2 days, but now they sang and darted across the landscape. An eagle caught my eye as the realization dawned, circling overhead before veering west over the canyon's edge, vanishing from sight. "Understood," I said with a grateful chuckle. About 2 hours later, I reached the peak of the canyon's rim. From that vantage point, the Canadian River stretched to the west, as expected, and half a mile below, the Ranger waited patiently. "Thank you," I said, staring into the horizon, hoping the eagle received my gratitude. I returned to the shop just after dark, the drive a blur of reflection. My mind churned over the past month, especially the details I'd missed, now illuminated by the ceremony. Lila's spirit merging into the Ducati, only the turn signals flashing, the headlight dark, had felt wrong even then, the fracture of my bond with it. That's why it seemed different, why my grandfather had seen its incompleteness. It had awaited my choice, while still protecting me. He'd prepared me for a ritual ceremony, its true purpose hidden from me at the time. I'd thought it was for Lila's passage, but I was mistaken. She was free, able to move on without it. The ceremony wasn't for her, it was for me, a choice unveiled. One path bound her to the Ducati, restoring its wholeness. The other let her go, mending my own fractured soul. Our unresolved bond left us both broken, needing closure, a resolution. He'd said I'd make the right decision, whichever it was. Adam's jab about marrying into her world, the Ducati reaching through the radio, Evelyn's recognition of my feelings for Lila, their exchange in the bunker, all were reflections guiding me to what I truly wanted. for Lila to remain, to continue our partnership, however it played out. She needed me, I needed her. Together we were stronger, poised to become a formidable team within the division. She was now bound to the Ducati, making it whole again, allowing her to stay safely in this world. Both were now steadfast guardians. My mixed heritage clouded my perception, but in Lila's presence, I saw with more clarity. Not as much medicine would be needed. Our bond between worlds now bridged that gap. These tangled thoughts and inner musings peaked as I rolled into the shop's parking lot. Killing the ignition, I looked up at the blank sign. I'd never named the place, never found the right word. Until now. Reds. She'll love it, I said, laughing aloud. Black horse, huh, I added, another laugh escaping. I had loathed the alias. As a kid in Texas, where teasing traditional names had cut deep, born of a desire to fit in. Adam knew those taunts, found traditional native names corny, and smiled at my grandfather's suggestion of it, knowing it would humble and ground me. Grandfather, though, perhaps he knew, perhaps not, but he grasped what I needed, to reclaim what I'd lost within, to become Black Horse. He was right, it's perfect, and I loved it. I truly earned it, but more importantly, I owned it now. After a quick shower, shave, and other grooming maintenance required after a month's neglect, I was ready to re-emerge into civilization, ready for my date. I descended to the bay housing the Ducati. The headlight needed reinstalling. As I finished mounting and connecting it, I leaned back. "Don't tease me, Red," I said with a chuckle. After a pause, it flashed bright, then dimmed. From behind, Lila's voice broke through.
"Hey, sexy, you clean up pretty nice,"
she said playfully. I turned. Nothing there. "Okay. We playing hide and seek?" I said, unamused.
"I'm different, Riley."
She responded from behind, a bashful tone in her voice. I turned again. Still empty. "Different how, Red?" "Are you transparent now?" I asked, curiosity sparking, amusement growing. "You didn't turn into an old woman, did you?" I teased.
"No."
She replied, a trace of unease lingering. "Come on, Red, let's see it." "I'm getting dizzy talking in circles," I said, impatience creeping in.
"Fine."
She said, a tinge of uncertainty in her tone, prompting one last turn. There she was, porcelain skin, gray eyes, her beautiful hair, now styled in a modern cut, the red dress replaced with a black one, just as alluring, topped with a leather riding jacket. I stood, speechless at her transformation. After a moment she asked,
"You like it?"
Uneasiness tinged her voice. "No," I responded, a bit harsh. Her gaze dropped to the floor, as if I'd torn her heart out. "I love it, Red," I continued with a warm smile. "You look amazing," I finished. Her eyes lifted from the floor, searching mine with insecurity.
"You mean it?"
she asked, almost pleading. "Absolutely, Red," I replied, grinning ear to ear.
"I don't know if you can call me Red anymore."
She responded with a genuine laugh and sigh of relief. "You'll always be Red to me. That's the rules, I don't make 'em up," I said with a reassuring grin. She smiled back, a bit sheepishly, her head tilting down and to the side. "Well, damn, now I've gone and made a ghost blush. Told you, rules are rules, you're still Red," I said with a laugh.
"Shut up, Riley.
She shot back, laughing herself.
Let's go."
She demanded playfully. "Right," I agreed. "You're already dressed for the road," I said with a wink, receiving a playful eye roll in return. Outside the shop, I fired up the Ducati, Lila's arms wrapped around me. Her perfume had returned, intoxicating, I thought as I inhaled, savoring it.
"I've been waiting so long for this ride,"
she whispered. "Me too, Red. Me too," I responded, dropping the Ducati into gear, cracking the throttle, and accelerating off into the night. The stars pulsated differently now, more vibrant and intense. Along the desert terrain, there were unknown energy sources I could feel. Almost here, Lila's embrace was warm, comforting, a grounding presence among it all. Our road and fate was unknown. All that mattered was that we would ride it out, face whatever they brought, together. From Reaper's creepers, the unknown retreats, and the shadows release you for now. Join us again to drift deeper into the dark.